We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes.
We're
just
moments
taking
ago
off next week.
we decided we are taking next week off. That's my request. I have some New Year's plans, and I don't particularly feel like doing a podcast next week during New Year's. Honestly,
How dare you?
I know, right? We've done this in the past. It's probably fairly predictable, but we are taking next week off. So this is the final AVRant podcast episode of 2025. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, because we won't get a chance to say it again to you before the year 2026 arrives for the next episode of AVRant. That's how it's going to go.
Yes. So just some behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to take next week off. I was apparently paying two different services to host 3 websites each.
Yep.
For currently 2 websites.
Yep.
Like one service was for one website and one service was for another. And I was like, what is happening? And one service was literally double the price of the other one. Even if they were the same price, it doesn't make any difference, but it was a lot. So over the weekend, I figured this all out. And I was like, okay, well, what's happening here? Why am I, it's one of these things where, I had 3 websites I had, with one service, and then those websites whittled down to 1. And then I had this other service that, because I didn't have any space over there, because it was cheaper, to do AVGadgets.
Sure.
So I transferred everything over to this other website that had, the other hosting service that has AVGadgets. And, as far as I can tell, for the first time in recorded history, I didn't break everything in the process. So our emails seem to still go through. Our the hosting didn't, like, at no point did I notice an interruption in the service, and I was testing it constantly. So I think everything works. So this has nothing to do with the email, by the way. Whatever happened with the email service, I think has nothing to do with that.
You weren't doing any of this when the email problems that we know we had were occurring. That all said, I think a perfectly fair reminder, because again, not everybody will have listened to the previous 2 episodes, and they might be joining this one on Christmas Day, for all we know, because that's kind of when this episode will be releasing. But then we have made some of these, or Tom has made, I shouldn't say we, because I had nothing to do with it. Tom has made some of these, changes behind the scenes to our website, which might affect an email. We don't think it has. All evidence suggests that it has not, but we can't say for sure. So
I have like a line of test emails in my inbox that's just like test 4, test 5, test 6, test 7. It's like it just
but we'll
keeps
just say
going.
once again, if you have attempted to email us and you've never heard any kind of response, your name mentioned on the podcast at all, or obviously not answering your question on the podcast if you sent one, like if any of that occurs, please try it again, because we most definitely had emails go missing on us throughout the month of November, and then there have been these changes made recently, so stranger things have happened, and please email again if you have not heard your name mentioned on this here podcast.
Yeah, so continue that going into the new year.
That's right.
We're not going to just respond to every email with received or something like that.
Well, yeah, that gets a bit
because
much.
that would just be insanity. But listen over the next couple of weeks, at the beginning of January, if you have not heard your name mentioned, just let us know. Just say, hey,
sure.
Duplicate emails take no time out of my day. All right, it really doesn't. Do not think you're bothering us. Just send it that question at avrant.com again. So behind the scenes, that is all sort of fixed as far as I can tell. So fingers crossed, because I'm about to get the big bill in January. The previous website, like I figured this out like on the 17th. right?
Yep.
And the ending, the renewal of the service that was double the price that I was trying to transfer everything away with was the 21st.
Okay.
Right. So I was like frantically trying to move everything and get it working and stuff like that. And then on the 21st, I'm like contacting them. I'm like, okay, so is everything working? Do I have everything over? And they were like, listen, we're not going to help you because you're no longer our client.
Gotcha.
Like, okay. I'm like, okay,
Classy.
well then turn off the auto renew.
Yes,
like,
for sure.
do not try to charge my card again. Turn off the auto renew because or actually I asked them, just cancel my service. Well, we don't do that. We just turn off the auto renew and then it'll like peter out.
Yes.
And I'm like, fine, whatever. Turn off the auto renew. They're like, you sure? I'm like, yes. Like, okay, we'll do it. But then it charged my credit card like twice, or it tried to.
Did.
So I was like, my card got shut down by my service, and I couldn't. It was a big thing on Saturday or Friday, whatever day the 21st was. It was a mess. So
lovely.
Like my wife's like, fix this. So
yes.
So I had to contact them again. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, we would like to keep. What if we could give you a better price? I'm like, what if you could just stop charging my credit card for 5 seconds?
Indeed,
like you said you were going to. So it's hopefully now fixed. Hey. The only bad thing is like that service had people talking to me. Okay. And then the service I transferred everything over to was like just AI bots.
Okay.
It was just like no help whatsoever.
Not particularly surprising.
But hey, at least it's cheaper. So there we are.
Okay.
But we have some big purchases to talk about.
Sure
let's start with Rob, who has a lot of pictures he wants to show.
Well, yeah, just to share a few. So I went ahead. I bought myself a new car. There you go. It's quite the early Christmas present for Rob. But yeah, I got myself a 2026 Hyundai Ioniq 9. Now in Canada, we have 3 different drivetrains available, which I think is the same for most of the rest of the world. So there's rear-wheel drive only. There's all-wheel drive, but where the front electric motor, this is an all-electric vehicle, by the way, but where the front electric motor is like basically half the power of the rear electric motor, and then there's an all-wheel drive plus, preferred plus all-wheel drive is the third trim in Canada, or third drivetrain in Canada, where the front and rear motors are the same amount of power. So I went for the preferred all-wheel drive, where the front motors are about half the power, and then each of those drivetrains you can add on a package to add more features. So in this middle trim or middle drivetrain that I went for, I added on the luxury package. If you went for the preferred plus all-wheel drive, you could add on the calligraphy package that they have. But yeah, that's the
Everything's
car.
in cursive. What is that about?
I don't know. That's just the name.
That's so millennials can't read the dashboard because it's in cursive.
Something like that. So people have pointed out the rear of this vehicle. It's a 3-row SUV. So the rear of this vehicle is very reminiscent of like Volvo design with the tall tail lights at the back of it there. But yeah, this uses the Tesla charging port. It's on the rear right. So I'm one of those people who's parking on the wrong side of the Tesla chargers. But one of the reasons why I felt comfortable getting this is they've put in a bunch of Tesla superchargers basically 2 blocks away from where I live, because my building can't really be upgraded to do electric car charging.
Sure.
But yeah, we've got Tesla superchargers that went in, and they actually put it in where they like, there's like on either side of the physical Tesla chargers, there are the parking spots where you can back in and park and charge, and they staggered the actual superchargers so that the cords are long enough to reach to either side of a vehicle, as long as it's like very close to either the front or the back of the vehicle. So it all works out, and I don't actually have to like split the parking lanes or anything like that. But yeah, it lights up very nicely.
So do you have to like plug your car in, and then when it's done charging, you have to go down and move it?
Well, I mean, I guess it's sitting there in the stall unless I move it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so that other people can use the charger. So you just can't leave it. You can't come home from work, plug your car in, and then go to sleep. You have to.
I mean, I could, but that would definitely be frowned upon, because obviously it's not charging for that length of time. So,
right.
But yeah, it's all fancy. It's all high tech on the inside. We got quite the nice little gauge cluster, which is all touchscreen, and it kind of curves very subtly so that it's all facing the driver position. I like that they didn't put like gigantic Hyundai logos everywhere. They used these 4 squares, 4 dots, which in Morse code is the letter H. So that's how they kind of put in the things for that. But there are oodles of settings in this car. So I just got this car on Friday. It was quite the fun buying experience because I literally just was looking up online which of my local Hyundai dealerships had the exact color and trim that I wanted in stock. It's tough to see in the photos I'm showing, but it's actually navy blue. The photo I'm showing right now where you're seeing like the inside edge is probably the best look at how it's navy blue. It looks black most of the time, which I kind of dig because I was thinking maybe I'd get another black car. My last car was black, but I'm like, I'd like to have like a black car that isn't actually black, and navy blue comes really, really close to that. So yeah, it's got like a full household outlet. You can also do vehicle to load on the outside one using the big 110 kilowatt hour battery, which is like the largest battery in a consumer electric vehicle right now. And then yeah, oodles of storage, which I love because even with the third row up, there's a good amount of trunk space in here, and then third row powers down. You got lots equal to what I had in my old Ford Edge, but then I can also put the second row down and I can fit a ton of stuff in there. You could easily sleep inside of the back of this vehicle. So
the most important thing is that he can put in a couple of big boxes full of subwoofers and or
a 75-inch TV can fit in there very nicely. So yeah, I'm very
not
pleased
a 77
with it.
Though. No, not a 77.
Maybe not. But yeah, the buying experience was great. So yeah, like I said, I looked up which location had it in stock, and I walked in there. I didn't prep my old vehicle at all. I'm just like, here's the car I want to buy. Here's the payments I want to make. Let's work it out with my trade-in. And they did, and I was in and out of there in about 3.5 hours with a brand new car. So there you go. All the
unfortunately
taken care
fast.
of.
Because
it is fast. It's very fast.
It is ludicrous how long it takes to buy a car.
That's
I mean,
right.
It should not be. You should be able to go in there with like a stack of cash and just go boom. I haven't had a payment on a car since I was married.
Okay.
You know, so over 20, almost 25 years. More than 25 years, I haven't had a payment on a car. And is that true? That might not be true. But anyways, and it still takes that long. You're like, listen, I'm not financing anything. Just give me the car. Just give it to me. Here is a check. I will, give me the car. And they're like, yeah, we're going to have to do some paperwork first. I'm like, okay, you do the paperwork and then give this, I will take the car and then you can send me the nope, I got the way around.
Okay. Well, I am financing it. I didn't just walk in with a stack of cash, and I did do the trade-in, and of course upgraded my insurance significantly from what I had on my old car versus the new car, because I definitely want full replacement insurance on the brand new one, unquestioningly, versus a 15-year-old vehicle. So yeah, it was a great purchasing experience so far. I'm very happy with the car. I did my first charging at a Tesla Supercharger. I didn't have to charge it very much, obviously, only having had it for a few days, but I wanted the experience of it, and that went very smoothly. There's two different apps, because if I'm charging on the Tesla Superchargers, I use the actual Tesla app, and then if I'm charging on the other types of chargers, the CCS chargers that are around, I use the Hyundai Blue Link app to set all of that up. But not too shabby and smooth sailing. And I'm a one pedal driver now. It didn't take very long. I'm a one pedal driver.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you. All right, so I set my TV up last night. Finally,
there you go.
I was like, I got to set it up before the podcast. Like, how it's such a bizarre experience. Like, people get so excited about their new AV purchases that they can't control themselves. They're immediately into it. Mine, I shoved the box behind the piano, the keyboard thingy that my son's been using for practice, that we borrowed from his piano teacher since our piano got flooded. It's just been sitting there. I've just been sitting there. I was like, I got to set this thing up. So I set it up last night. I used the same stand that I had used with the LG, which I had, whichever the one it was that you recommended. I can't remember what it is now. But the bolts didn't fit. And then I had thrown everything else away. Not the bolts.
Those universal TV stands do come with multiple different size bolts to fit a variety of TVs, but
weird washers too. It was like it was disconcerting, like trying to figure out what was what without the directions that went on there. And like there's this big plastic washer thing that barely let the teeth grab on it. And if you put the washer on the end of this big plastic spacer thing, it wouldn't reach. So you're like, oh, okay. So anyways, we my sons and I got this thing set up and everything, and then there was a big plastic bit that, like the screen protector they got to pull off. They're very excited.
Yes, right. Overall,
from the setup standpoint of this, it went smoother than the LG that I had, the C2 or C3 or whatever it was I had before.
The one that got destroyed in all of the flooding, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is a Samsung S90D, and the setup overall was easier as far as going into settings and stuff like that. Now, have I got everything set up perfectly yet? Probably not. I'm going to probably go through it with Rob afterwards or at some point in the next week and just make sure that I've got everything set up the way that it should be. The Apple TV 4K is probably set up better than the one that I had before, so that at least initially, because I set all that stuff up at the same time with my LG. So this went pretty smoothly. The biggest issue I ran into was that it defaults to the home screen, which is this big menu crap thing. And then if you wait long enough, yeah.
Oh, does it actually go to the full showing the Samsung TV, Internet TV thing? Because that might be
and then there's a little box that shows where the last input or the input that you've selected or the last input you were on.
Though. You can change it to just go.
Let me finish. So that was the biggest problem I ran into. If you just waited long enough, the input that was playing would pop up on the screen.
Okay.
But I was like, I don't want to wait for that. So I did a 5-second internet search and found out that you could turn that off in the privacy settings for some reason is where it was.
That could be it. Yeah, Samsung tries to streamline the number of options, but that means things end up in weird places on some of those menus. Yeah.
So I went and found that and turned that off, and then it worked fine. Which will lead into the next part that we'll talk about here, which is the Sofabaton X2 review, which is now up on AVGadgets.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I had to do, of course, was get the new Samsung to be part of the one activity I have, which is watch TV.
Yes, that is the first one that you set up for sure.
So how long did that take? So we're going to talk about the Sofabaton X2 review that's on AVGadgets is from Andrew. I was going to interject my opinions into this thing. I have one little editor's note at the very beginning, and then of course my hand is all through it as far as making sure that it's got the right tone and all of that. But I was going to interject my experiences as a counterpoint or another opinion as to
an addendum to it.
The X2. But now I've decided I'm just going to write my own. So because Andrew's is coming from the two different standpoints. He's coming from the standpoint of somebody who has a much bigger system that also integrates lights and a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
And then also has much experience with the earlier Sofabatons.
That's right.
He did the X1, the X1S, so the X2. So some of the things that he does not mention, that I will mention in my review, are simply because he's been using a Sofabaton X series for a while.
Right.
So I'm going from using the Apple TV remote to control everything, which literally would not turn off the TV, by the way. I could never get it to turn off the TV.
Through CEC, isn't it just a joy?
It just would not turn off. I always had to go up there and physically turn off the TV myself. So the X2, that was for me, that was the biggest quality of life improvement, was just I could press a button and everything turned off.
Yeah.
But the X2 review is up. There is a code. There's a Amazon link on there with a code in there that will give you
15% off.
15% off.
And that's in addition to the coupon code that Sofabaton is already running on Amazon or on their own website. So they basically still have a, this is a new product discount code at the beginning. And then, the Gadgets AV code from us that you can put into the promo code section gives you another 15% off. So there you go. You can save some money if you're interested in purchasing the Sofabaton X2.
So the X2... Rob, you still haven't gotten yours yet?
Well, I have some fun news.
Oh.
Look what arrived yesterday.
Oh, let me
a functioning... you can't see it because it's too bright. But anyway... You can see that the screen is lighting up very obviously on our YouTube video, which, I'm sitting here beside a 144p resolution Tom, because I don't know, maybe all your sons being home, somebody's streaming a whole bunch of content right
They're all streaming right now.
That would make sense.
They're all streaming. It looks fine on my end. So maybe on the YouTube video, it will look okay.
No, I might have to do a quick little edit where I put in your local recording of the video and do that here. But anyway, who cares about that? I have a functioning X2. I very quickly just put in 3 devices real quick. Again, you can barely see. I'll try to angle that down so a little bit, but you can sort of see some of that on that screen. But yeah, I've got those and I've got activities. So there you go. Hooray. I've confirmed that it worked. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to... Are we calling this our Sofabaton X2 review right now, or are we just saying this is the AVGadgets one?
I would rather, let's just talk about the AVGadgets one for right now. I mean, you can interject some of the things that you agree with or don't agree with, I guess, but I'm going to, let's wait until after the new year, and then we'll do the official AVRant one. If that's okay. If you really want to talk about it right now, we can do it right now, but...
Okay. We had super internet glitch there. Are you hearing me right now, Tom?
I am hearing you.
Okay, there we go. So I guess we caught back up. The only thing I want to say, since getting to properly use it now, one little criticism, because hey, honestly, let's do the positive first. This is basically what I was hoping it would be, which all along I said, if this is an X1/X1S that replaces the scroll wheel with a touch screen, I'm going to be pretty happy with it. And I'm happy to report that the touchscreen is very responsive, right? That was maybe one of the little hesitancies I had, like how responsive is it going to be? You touch the screen and there's a little bit of a lag or something like that. No such thing. So I think the only kind of little criticism I want to say is that everything on this remote lights up. All of the buttons are backlit. But the one button that I would love to have light up on this remote that doesn't is the back button on the screen itself. Right? Because when you're already in an activity and then you decide you want to go to a different activity, it's not that, muscle memory is going to be pretty easy because the little back button for the screen is always in the same location. It's just in that lower left edge of the screen itself. But that little back arrow doesn't light up. And, one thing that Andrew did a good job of mentioning in his review, and it's something that I echo, is that one of the things I love about universal remotes like this, like what the Harmony was, like what I'm saying the Sofabaton X2 is now, is that I don't want this remote to just be for me. I don't want it to just be for the person who programmed the remote. I want a Harmony and I want a Sofabaton X2 to be the type of remote that I can hand to anybody, maybe give a very brief little explanation, but I want it to be user-friendly, like once it's all set up, I mean. I want it to be intuitive for someone who isn't like super tech-savvy, who isn't a home theater enthusiast. I want to be able to hand this to my parents and have them be able to use it quite easily once it's set up. So about the only thing I would say that might be slightly unintuitive and might have to be explained is that, if I'm already in an activity and then I want to change to another activity, you do need to hit that little back arrow that's on the screen itself. And that not being lit up is like one little thing that you're going to have to explain. That's where it is, right? And people are going to have to remember that that's where that screen back arrow is. But I don't know if that's like kind of my only quote unquote criticism of the thing. I think we're doing pretty darn well. So as Andrew also pointed out in his review, I think it's fair to say that this is an infrared, first type of remote. Like that's kind of the biggest benefit is infrared control. I think it does Bluetooth control pretty darn well as well, mainly because pretty much all of your streaming devices, that's all going to be Bluetooth remotes. And many of them can work with infrared commands, but it's a little bit nicer and a little bit better to use a Bluetooth connection between the Sofabaton X2 and almost all of the streaming devices, mainly because then you don't have to worry about where anything is aimed, or if you've got a stick that's plugged into an HDMI port that's, behind your TV and isn't going to have clear line of sight, Bluetooth is going to work better for that. And pretty much, certainly any of the popular streaming devices, those Bluetooth codes are in Sofabaton's database. So I think that's a great way to control all of those. Where somebody who's really into lots of macros and home automation and stuff might feel that there's room for improvement. And Sofabaton is working on this, so it's not as though this is like a static review that's going to remain the same forever. But as it stands right now, I wouldn't call this an IP-based first remote. Like, that is not the like priority number one way to come at this remote, in my opinion, because the default like pre-programmed things that are done by IP is still very limited. It's Philips Hue, it's Roku, and it's Sonos. And then all of the home assistant integration and then the manual putting in IP addresses and your own commands type of stuff. Like, you can do that, but it's definitely not for someone who's completely unfamiliar with that stuff. You kind of need to know what you're doing. This isn't going to hold your hand through IP-based control setup other than the 3 predefined ones that are already programmed in there. So ultimately, I think that's like my opinion of this thing. I'm very happy with it. I think it's an easy recommendation as long as you're okay with the, over $300 price tag of the thing. But yeah, for sure, if you're someone who's like, I'm getting a little bit antsy about the Harmony that I still haven't had, because that support really is starting to show, the phrase in the seams at this point. It's like, I think if you're coming from Harmony to a Sofabaton X2, you're going to be happy. I think if you've never had an activity-based remote before, I can quite easily recommend the Sofabaton X2. But yes, obviously, there's going to be some time taken with setup. And then I would also say, because all of the setup is app-based, if you have a tablet, I think setting it up on a tablet is a little bit of a nicer experience, just because any little links, any little buttons that you want to change in that, not having to do it just on a phone-sized screen.
Yeah,
it's certainly doable on a phone-sized screen, but it's that little bit more pleasant to do it on the larger tablet size. Or hey, maybe you're going to get one of those new tri-fold Samsungs where it can fold out, into a tablet size from a phone. And that would be perfectly fine. But I think little bit larger buttons during the setup is just a nicety. Yeah.
So I've actively, to speak to Rob's point about, I want this to be a remote for everybody. Yeah. I've actively not told anybody in this house how this remote works. Right. Like, no one has asked me, but no one has actually had any problems figuring it out. So
exactly, yeah.
It is just sitting in the room, and then they've picked it up, and they've looked at it, and they've been, now most of them are teenage boys, 16 to 22. I don't know that my wife has done anything with it, but she generally doesn't. So it doesn't really make, I don't know that that's ever going to be something I'm going to be able to test without just handing her the remote and then staring at her as she does it. What I want her to do is I want to come home and see her watching TV someday. Yeah. But if I'm not around, she doesn't watch TV. So that's just not going to happen.
I guess the only other thing I would point out is that, on the very first screen on the Sofabaton X2, on that light up touch screen, the very first screen that shows up, I haven't found a way to like customize those 6 initial buttons first. This is where you've got your devices, your activities, your settings. I like that there's a sleep timer. That's pretty cool, because if your devices don't have sleep timers of their own, you can do a sleep timer on the remote. And since it's an activity-based remote that can turn off multiple things all at once, you can set a sleep timer on your remote for, a whole suite of devices that might not have their own. So I think that's pretty cool. But the 2 buttons that are actually lowest on the screen and therefore closest to the physical buttons, other than the back arrow and the favorites star, they are sync and version. And the version button being there, it's like, well, I mean, it doesn't hurt anything, but it's kind of unnecessary, because all it really does is show you.
I think Andrew mentions that in his review too. It is kind of it's like it's got to be a placeholder for something else. I don't know why that's there.
I guess they just wanted to kind of fill up the screen. But the sync button, I'm actually going to say, could potentially be mildly problematic, because if you accidentally touch that sync button, it syncs the remote to the hub over again, which takes a little bit of time. I mean, it takes maybe a minute or two, but like, that's a minute or two while it's syncing. And I should be more leery of interrupting any processes after the first
well, you can't
review
interrupt
sample.
It anyways. I've tried, so yeah, it doesn't.
I did. I was able to interrupt that sync process by hitting the back arrow on the remote, or maybe I hit a button on the app. I can't remember perfectly clearly right now, but I was able to interrupt the sync process that I initiated from the touch screen on the remote itself, on the actual wand in hand. When I initiated the sync from that button, when I interrupted that process, it didn't load one of my activities because I had interrupted the sync process.
Right.
So on my wand, on the remote in hand, one of the activities I had programmed went away. So I'm like, okay, so that button being there on that screen, it's like that could potentially, for the non-tech savvy, for the you handed this to your parents or your grandparents, that could result in a call at some point. So we'll see if maybe there's a way to sort of deactivate that or move it to a screen where you'd have to scroll to it intentionally or something like that. But yeah, that might be one of my only other criticisms, and just something to be a little bit aware of. If you hit that sync button, let it finish syncing. That's the simple advice.
But if you don't let it finish syncing, then you have to hit it again, basically.
Then you just have to do it again. Yeah.
So when I was first, I guess you're right, because when I was first, not guess, you're clearly right because you experienced it. But when I first started setting up the remote the first time, the syncing was taking forever, and I didn't know what was going on. So I would back out of it, and then I would have like one device instead of three devices, sort of thing, as it was trying to update everything. So yes, but overall, I mean, there's really very little negative to say about this remote.
For sure, yeah. I mean,
you can compare it to the Harmony. I think at this point it's not fair because Harmony is it's so close. It's so close to not being viable anymore that to continue to compare it to the Harmony, it's so old that we all think it was perfect when it came out, and we don't remember that it had its own issues.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I'll tell you what.
I've said it. Andrew said it. Rose-tinted glasses for sure are in effect when it comes to Harmony.
Well, not only that, a lot of times you had to plug it into your computer,
absolutely,
to get it to update and to do things, and you're like, I don't have to do that with this thing. I just go on the app, and then I press the button. It's in fact, I don't even have to press a button to sync it. If you make a change on the app, you'll look down at your remote and it'll say syncing.
Yeah.
So it'll do it automatically, which is very nice. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's almost happening in the background as you're doing it.
Yeah, because you're looking at your screen. So anyway, it gets AVGadgets stamp of approval. It gets Rob H's stamp of approval. It sounds like it's going to get Tom's official review stamp of approval, certainly in an overall sense. So yeah, we're really quite happy with the Sofabaton X2. I'm going to have a few
more nitpicks with this thing from the standpoint of somebody who's has gone directly from a Harmony to this. And that's the standpoint that I'm going to have. I'm going to take on that. I'm going to have a few more nitpicks, but it's overall, I mean, it is clearly, we should no longer be comparing remotes to Harmonies. We should be comparing it to this.
And certainly for the crowd who's like, I'd really like to have a universal remote that can do activities and macros, but I program it myself. I am not forced to go through a custom installer or hire somebody to do it. It's like, I don't know what else you can just go on Amazon and buy today that's going to be anywhere near. So easy recommendation on that front. Yeah.
So what we watched, I finished Solo Leveling season 1 on Crunchyroll. I liked it enough. I am intrigued enough by what is happening. So the last time I was like, oh, it's kind of like a rehash of everything else that's ever happened in anime before.
Okay.
But I feel like they're at least trying to do something interesting with the character, because we're seeing his personality change in a way that isn't like I'm just Goku and getting stronger sort of thing. That I am actually considering getting a subscription to Crunchyroll so I can see season 2. I am liking it quite a bit. It's the animation style is very good, I think. I mean, it's not the best, but it's good enough. The action sequences are frantic enough and chaotic enough that it doesn't just feel like Dragon Ball Z, where people are like standing there going, and glowing balls are appearing over their head while the other person just standing there going, what is he doing? I don't know. Why don't you punch him? Make him stop. So it's an interesting premise, and if they keep taking the character in the direction that I think he's going, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he is actually the hero by the end of it. That's all I'll say by it, because it feels like that's not the direction they're going right now, and I like it. I like when we're not anti-heroes. I'm just like, I like when we take a character in a more interesting direction than
do something
I am
a little
the chosen
bit novel.
one. Therefore, you can actually read my novel. Touch of Pain, which is available on Amazon, and you will see that I very much agree with taking your characters in ways that your audience doesn't necessarily want to or think that you are going to go, or even maybe wants you to go. So there you go. What did you watch?
Yeah, so I don't have to re-review these because Tom already did his reviews, but I finally went back and caught up on the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that I hadn't watched yet, which were Captain America: Brave New World and Thunderbolts **. So yeah, I can just quickly say that Captain America: Brave New World, certainly felt like let's tidy up the MCU. Some of those hanging threads, a little bit of a checklist movie. I don't really feel that it necessarily served Anthony Mackie's new Captain America the very best.
No, I don't think so either.
And I don't think he, the actor, is to blame. I think the movie and the script is to blame for that, unfortunately.
You know what this felt like? This felt like a made-for-TV Captain America. To me.
Didn't this feel more like the TV show than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which felt more like a movie? Yeah.
Yes. I totally agree with that. I've watched pieces of it again, and I'm just like, man, this is fine, but compared to the other Captain America movies, which were like really felt like they're trying to say something. This was just like, I guess we got to make another one, and it felt too safe, and therefore. Like you said, there's a checklist.
They definitely backed off from the social commentary from what was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I really enjoyed in that in that Disney Plus series. So it is a great shame that William Hurt, passed away before he was able to play General, now President Ross, in this movie.
Harrison Ford did a great job. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Stepped in and not like that was not one of the Harrison Ford phoning it in performances. He really gave it his all in this movie. But yeah, there's just no denying that. Obviously you had William Hurt playing that character all along until he sadly passed away. So it would have been nice for him to get. I mean, this is sort of the conclusion of that Thunderbolt Ross character, more or less. So yeah, it would have been great if William Hurt had been around to play him, but Harrison Ford did a good job. So that was Captain America: Brave New World. Thunderbolts **. That was a surprisingly different MCU movie that I really did enjoy. Certainly not going to be necessarily what you expect from that. Maybe a little bit.
I like it more the more I think about it, to be honest with you.
Exactly. Florence Pugh, man, fantastic. Isn't she? She was so good in that.
She's like a YouTube. Didn't she come from YouTube or something like that? I mean, like she wasn't.
I don't remember that, but
I believe that. I felt like that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but she just, to me, she came out of nowhere and just.
Oh no, she's been around, but
she's been killing it.
She's really, really strong in this movie. Her performance, really, really good. Now, they did a very different take on the character of Sentry in this movie. So if you were looking for a very comics accurate retelling of Sentry's introduction into the Marvel comic books, then this is a very different take from that. And I don't know how much I love that. I personally think that the Sentry story in the Marvel comics is really interesting. So there's a part of me that was a little bit disappointed that we really didn't get that at all. And like almost every Marvel Cinematic Universe movie version of the characters, they definitely power down everybody. like Sentry in this movie is very, very powerful, but it's still not as like cosmically powerful as the comic book version, and none of the characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe feel as cosmically powerful as they do in the comic books. So it's fitting with that. But yeah, I'm a little bit torn on the character just because I feel like it worked really well for the movie. But I'm almost wishing they had either used a different comic book character or maybe just invented their own for once for the movies or something like that. Versus this is Sentry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there's a little bit of me that's torn about that. But because this was a movie that did have something to say and did have a theme and was more focused on the characters and their emotions than it was on plot and action. Because of that, what they did with all the characters in this movie works very, very well. I think it might be a little bit hard to watch this movie completely standalone. I think it would at least make sense to watch Black Widow before this movie, like if I'm recommending to people.
Yes, I would agree with that, especially because of the very beginning of the movie.
That's right.
And, yeah.
So
I was wrong about Florence Pugh, by the way. I just looked her up.
Yes.
I was thinking of somebody else. Go on.
Yeah, I thought so. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is a completely homework-free movie to get the most out of it. Yeah, it's tough for me to say because I don't know what the experience would be watching it without any backstory to it whatsoever. But I think it would certainly benefit you to at least watch Black Widow first. Which, hey, not such a bad thing because getting Florence Pugh's character introduction in that movie, I think is only going to be an enjoyable experience. But yeah, definitely give a big thumbs up to Thunderbolts asterisk, and less so to Captain America: Brave New World. But if you were somebody who was like, man, some of those threads that have just been hanging out there in the MCU for quite a few years at this point, if you're the sort of person who's like, I want those plot threads like tied up for me at some point, then you'll like Captain America: Brave New World, because that's its like primary function, is like cleaning up some of those hanging threads that have been out there for 16 years now. So there you go.
All right. Let's get to the podcast here.
Sure.
AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You go to the website, find our shows, our show notes. Excuse me. Show notes, previous episodes. In the notes, you'll find links to any products or articles that we reference, as well as a link to a Flickr album so you can follow along with the pictures that we'll be talking about here. You can contact us, or you can find us on facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant. Go to, let's see here, contact Rob directly at rob@avrant.com. His socials at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. Well, at least sometimes I am.
Right.
I don't know. It's just sometimes the email works. Who knows? We want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways to do that is go to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, send us a PayPal donation. And this week, we want to thank Dan for doing that. Thank you very much, Dan.
All right. Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for that PayPal donation. Really appreciate that financial support.
And we have 122 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon's a service that you can support your content creators monthly. They will take at least $1, however much you specify, but it's got to be at least $1 from you and give most of it to us. And currently we have 122 patrons over at patreon.com/AVRant podcast.
That's right. I'll say it one more time. It's patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 122 patrons over there.
If you can't support us financially, support us in some other way, and we'll mention you here. Bill sent in the movie code for me to test for him. I think I confirmed that code does work. So, Bill, you're free to use it.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill.
Saucy offered to sell me either a Integra DRX 3.4, which is the same as the NR 7100, but with a full set of pre-outs, or a Marantz send them a 50 at a big discount if I decide I want a less than a year-old receiver in the new home theater. Yeah. And I don't know yet, to be honest with you. I have still only 3 speakers set up in there, and I need stands. And then the on wall, the ghost wire we're going to set up in there. Yeah. So it's on my list of things to do. I just got the TV set up yesterday. Yes. I wanted to get the speaker set up before the TV, but that didn't happen. So I'm going to have to hold off on that until I make until I get all these speakers set up, and then I figure out what this. And I mean, there really shouldn't be anything wrong with the NAD receiver that you have for the system that you want to do. So I don't. I mean, the only reason I would want it is for the room correction, but I still have room treatments to build and a bunch of other stuff. And your NAD runs Dirac, so it's not like you're being left out in the cold with a really subpar room corrections system. Yeah. It's I think you'll be happy once you get around to running that. Yeah. So thank you, Saucy. I'll let you know. Yeah. We've got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Brian from Infinite Gary. He says, happy holidays. Also, he says to Scott, who said he's trying to catch up on the number of TV and surround sound setups that Gary has. Gary has his Runco projector set up in this main theater, and then 11 other TVs, but only 6. 7 of them are professionally calibrated. So Gary has room for improvement himself. Jesus.
Yes, the reason I put in those no wait is because Gary himself, like, he sent the email and he's like, no wait, I've got another TV. And he's like, okay, but these are the number that are professionally counted. No wait, there was one other that I forgot about. Yeah. So yes, even Gary forgets how many TVs he has until you get to that point, until you are forgetting the TVs that you have set up in use. Because his aren't just, these are the TVs I own and some of them are in storage. He's like, no, he's got 11 of them actually set up and in use in his house, plus a projector in his dedicated home theaters. So there you go.
I got another gratitude from Nick, from Art, who says happy holidays, from Jay, who says thanks for providing great intel in a way that is open and accessible to enthusiasts of all levels. Karl, who says have a great holiday and New Year. Brandon, Rory, and Jay, I guess A, this is a different Jay. Actually, both J's this week have the last initial A, but this is a different J from the first J. That's so, right, anyways, there's two J's.
There are two J's.
So we got notes of gratitude from Brian, Infinite Gary, Nick, Art, Jay, Karl, Brandon, Rory, and Jay. So thank you to all of you for thinking.
Yes, I'll say the names one more time so they came from my lips. We got Brian, Gary, Nick, Art, Jay, Karl, Brandon, Rory, and other Jays. So thank you all so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
All right, in the news, this comes from our listener, Karl. The movie experience what is this? Movie experience SLO, the Downtown Center Cinemas in California, has announced that it will become the first theatrical exhibitor in the U.S. to adopt Dolby's Dolby Vision Plus Atmos solution for theater rooms other than full-on Dolby Cinema. What is this? What is this?
Okay, so
this sentence makes no sense to me. What am I reading?
There's a company called the Movie Experience. So they're actually like one of the oldest theatrical exhibitors, but they're on the West Coast. So SLO is I'm forgetting what that stands for, but it's one of the regions over in California. So it's the Downtown Center Cinemas that are in that region. But the Movie Experience is the company. So we have, of course, know about Dolby Cinemas. If you wanted to actually see Dolby Vision, not in your house, but at a full-blown theatrical cinema, then you went to the Dolby Cinemas. But they have a solution that lets theaters put Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos now into theaters that aren't full-on Dolby Cinemas. So the Movie Experience is going to be the first location in the United States to do that version of Dolby Vision at a cinema.
So it's like a smaller theater? Is that what is that like a smaller theater?
Yeah, well, it's like you don't necessarily have to use Dolby's own seats. You don't necessarily have to have the tactile transducers. You don't necessarily have to have like the entrance way that is like was designed by Dolby. And like if you're going to have a Dolby Cinema, you have to have their entrance way. So it's like those types of things aren't a necessity to have this, but you can still have Dolby Vision in it.
All right. So you might recall that earlier this year, a less expensive single projector Dolby Vision solution was announced for commercial movie theaters. So it would appear the Movie Experience SLO will be the first in the U.S. to deploy it. They'll be opening a black box auditorium with a floating screen installation and the new projector and sound system. And with the new projector and sound system, it'll be able to show any of the over 700 theatrical features that have been mastered for Dolby Vision in theaters, which have been exclusive to Dolby Cinemas until now. So, yay, I guess. Yeah,
that's right.
If somebody does it, then maybe somebody else will do it. I guess.
Well, that's just it. It's a little portent of potential things to come. Maybe this is the way I'll finally get some HDR theaters in my neck of the woods because we've never had a Dolby Cinema open up in where I'm living. So I would appreciate having HDR in commercial movie theaters around my area. So maybe this is a sign that it could be on its way. Fingers crossed.
So ahead of CES 2026, it's clear that at this point, the next big thing for LCD TVs is RGB backlighting. Hisense was the first to actually release what they dubbed an RGB MiniLED TV with their 116-inch 116 UX model. They claimed it could hit 8,000 nit peaks using its 3,500 plus local dimming zones. TCL was the next to announce their Q10M Ultra series that will launch in 2026. They're also calling their new backlight tech RGB mini LEDs, but they said theirs will hit 9,000 nit peaks using 17,000 zones, or nearly 17,000 zones of local dimming. But in terms of a TV you can actually buy today, Samsung was actually next with their 115M 115MR95F. I'm just going to start doing it that way and instead of trying to translate it into English, I'm just going to read the numbers and letters off in the row.
Okay.
Because it's so annoying.
That's still fair.
They call theirs Micro LG. RGB LED TV because apparently they love confusing names for display technologies.
Yes, of course, because Samsung is like the leader in micro LED, right? That's their The Wall or the Onyx when it's in the commercial movie theaters. That's micro LED, where every single subpixel is its own separate little micro LED. Well, micro RGB LED is not that. Because in a micro RGB LED TV, it's still a backlight. You still have an LCD screen, which are the actual pixels, and then you have a much lower number than the actual pixel count of a 4K display in terms of little LEDs. Now, they are technically micro LEDs. They fall just below the, 100 nanometer threshold for calling it a micro LED. So they're not like wrong to call it micro, but just like calling it micro RGB LED and no mention of LCD in the marketing name, versus they have something called micro LED. So it's like, you might think micro RGB LED is like better than micro LED. Yeah. It's more letters, it's newer, but absolutely not. It's an LCD TV. The LED, the RGB, the micro RGB LEDs are the backlight for the LCD.
Can we just not conflate number of letters with being better, please? Because that's just it's gonna make me absolutely crazy having to read these long ass names off.
Yes.
Constantly. Anyway, Samsung doesn't actually list peak nits and zone count specs, but independent testing pegs the figures at around 5,000 peak nits and 5,000 zones of local dimming. So, it's obviously garbage. It's sarcasm for those of you that don't have a sense of humor. So, not to be left out of the RGB fun, LG has announced their Micro RGB Evo LCD TVs that they'll be unveiling.
It's a longer name, Tom. It's got to be better.
It's got to be better. But LG's offerings in this arena appear to be a little more conservative than the other brands. The MRGB 95B series will come in 75, 86, and 100-inch size screen sizes. No 115 or 116 size like the other brands. So they're only going for 1,000 zones of local dimming and no peak nit claim specified just yet. LG mentions it'll use their Alpha 11 AI processor. Please stop putting the letters AI into everything, which is already in their top tier OLEDs. And their marketing is focusing on the new series being able to hit 100% of Rec 2020 certified by Intertech. But full Rec 2020 coverage has already been claimed by all the other brands doing RGB backlighting as well. So
that's right.
They can claim anything they want, though. LG also let it slip that there will be an MRGB 9M series, which uses their Zero Connect box, which is the processor is outside the box so that the TV can be as small as possible. And the only physical cable going to the TV screen is its power cord. But they let it slip that there will be a less expensive MRGB 85B series. This one sounds bewildering because there apparently it's edge-lit. I got there.
But an edge-lit RGB LED I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. Are you going to have a strip of one color somewhere on your screen? Because that's the only way an edge-lit...
It's all red from the left. Green from the right.
It's just going to have to be combining those RGB LEDs to make white the entire time anyway when it's edge-lit. So that's a bizarre choice to me to do an edge-lit version of this. But I kind of like that LG, like as far as their model numbers go, right? Like they call their OLEDs an OLED screen size B5, C5, G5, whatever it is. But the first letters at the beginning are just OLED. So you got a pretty good idea what that TV is. And then these are MRGB. And then, 95M or 85M or whatever the series is, like MRG, micro RGB, MRGB. So like I like that LG at least does that with their model names. It's a little bit easier to parse.
All right. Comments. Mark, Gary, and others noticed the YouTube comments left on our last video by Matthew Pose and Gene from Audioholics. They were, of course, in response to what we said in the episode about the per listen for Atmos video posted on Audioholics channel. Some folks wanted to hear our responses to what they wrote, so we just want to acknowledge that we received those emails and messages. I don't think that we're really going to go into that.
No, because look, I don't want to do a whole back and forth. That's honestly like a massive game of telephone because like Matthew Pose and Gene are mostly hearing what we said, like through other people, or they're saying, hey, go check out this video where these guys disagreed with you or whatever. And then like we're getting messages saying, hey, they responded back to you, and what's your response to them? And it's like all kind of like going through third parties and getting misinterpreted and all stuff. I'm just going to say I'm leaving their comments on that video. So if you want to go to the YouTube of last episode, what was that, 996, and read the comments that they posted there. I'm not going to take those down. I'm leaving those there. They had some criticisms of us and whatever. There's some disagreement. That's fine. This is going to happen. There's going to be differences of opinions sometimes. But it's like, yeah, I mean, like, I think what they wrote speaks for itself. However you want to interpret the tone, because I never try to interpret tone when it's in text. Yeah. You know, who knows what maybe some of it was meant tongue in cheek and that's not coming across. Maybe all of it was meant dead serious. I have no real idea because it's text and I can't tell what the tone of the voice was really meant to be. So I think what they wrote speaks for itself. However you want to interpret it, we're not going to like get into some weird like manufactured flame war by people who are bigger fans of us than them or bigger fans of them than us, whatever it is. I'm not going to be dragged into that, especially at Christmas time. So yeah, I think what they wrote speaks for itself, and there it is.
Because I didn't read the comments because I don't care.
Sure.
I mean, I frankly do not care what anybody else says about.
You can guess, Tom.
Not that hard to figure out. Yeah. But the reality is there is no, you know, whether somebody say recently to me something, a rising tide, there's like a bunch of different sayings like this. A rising tide lifts all ships, or, you know, you can light 1,000 candles from one candle and it doesn't diminish the light from the one candle, the first candle sort of thing. The idea here is that there's no reason to tear down other people in order to lift yourself up.
Sure.
You could just lift everybody up at the same time. So whenever we talk about other people who are in the same industry as us, we try to make sure that we include any sort of context that we can see that makes sense for what they're saying.
I mean, I'm not going to say we do a fantastic job of that every time.
We probably don't. But, you know, we've talked about, you know, Linux tech tips, and we've talked to about other industry professionals and stuff. And a lot of times the caveats are like, well, in their industry or in the people that their audience, this makes sense what they said, but this is why it doesn't make sense for our audience.
Sure. Sort
of thing. And that's about the one thing that I think that we try to do as best we possibly can. And we're human. We don't always.
Oh gosh, no.
We aren't always
but I mean, any of the advice that I ever give out on this podcast, I feel quite comfortable with, because, like I've always said, I always go back to my guiding North Star, which is I just want to give the advice that I would want to receive if I were the one asking the questions. I always feel very comfortable with that as sort of like an ethical policy or a moral standpoint or whatever you want to call it on that front. And then, I'm like, my main thing is anything that I say, I try to give the sort of advice where it's like, you certainly don't have to believe me. You don't have to do what I say in any way, shape, or means, but like, just do the comparison for yourself, right? Like that's the, like, if you do the comparison for yourself, you're either going to be like, yep, I agree with Rob, or nope, I don't agree with Rob, and it's pretty cut and dry, and I'm happy either way. Like, I would rather you do the experiment, but I just want to, like, if somebody's asked me, what do I think about it? I'm going to say honestly, I'm going to try and give the advice that I would want to receive, and then, from there, I would prefer for you to do your own comparison.
So I'm a member of a couple of different like communities that have a lot of people out there whose job it is to give advice, right? Sure. The cycling community is one, of course, home theater and audio is another. And the reality of both of those industries is you can almost say whatever you want because the basic, the basic knowledge of, hey, in order to even start to ask questions, I've already set things up a certain way. In home theater, for example, I already know where my speakers should be set up. I already kind of know what, how to level match my speakers. Nowadays, you just do that with room correction, but back in the day, you had to use an SPL meter or something along those lines. You were already 90% of the way there to good sound, right? And in cycling, it's the same thing. If you're at the point where you're trying to listen to GCN, which is, the big the big content creator for cycling. You're listening to GCN and they're talking about stuff. I watch their content. I'm like, I don't agree with literally anything you're saying. Like the entire video is so full of, it's just an ad. It's just an ad for what it is that you're selling, right? Which is that's fine, because in the end, the device doesn't really matter. Your bike will still be cleaner and be a little bit better, but you're telling them to do a bunch of stuff that doesn't really, it isn't necessary in order to get that same result. So you're already there. So we can all argue with each other about what's the best way to position your speakers, or whether or not you should angle this, or whether or not you should have, where you should put stuff. But the reality is, anybody who listens to your advice, they're already 90% of the way there to good sound. They did not, anything they change or whatever might make a slight improvement, might not, but in the end, they're going to be, we're all just, it's not life or death. It's not like,
I want to say,
it's not like they go from not having sound to having sound, or not having a bike that rolls forward to having a bike that rolls forward. All the bikes work. All the home theaters work. You angle your Atmos speakers, or you get front wides, or you position your subs right next to your couch versus across the room for each other. There'll be some differences, but it won't be like oh, now my system doesn't work anymore.
I definitely feel as far as home theater and audio goes, my like purely my approach and my stance is that I want to find it humorous, and I want to find it lighthearted, and I want to find it jovial, and I want to find it kind of unserious. I take people's money seriously.
It is unserious. This is an unserious hobby. Are you kidding me?
But I take the money people are spending seriously. But ultimately, overall I take it. But some people want to take it more seriously, and they want to take it more objectively, and they want to take it less humorously, and that's fine. That's perfectly okay. So there you go.
I watched a video. This is cycling. So there was a click in my bike, and it's been driving me nuts. As a mechanic, I can't stand it. Like, I don't understand how people ride their bikes and they sound like choo-choo trains, but they do. But mine had this little click, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So I took my bike into the shop, and I was going through it, and I was like, man, these pedals are a little bit wobbly, which they shouldn't be. I'm like, I wonder what that's about. And so I started watching some videos, and there was 2 videos. There's like a 5-minute video, like how to service your pedals, which I have look pedals, but how to service your look pedals. And it was like 5 minutes long. I'm like, oh, that can't be very good. And there's this other one that was like 25 minutes long from this guy who's like this engineer. So I'm watching this 20-minute video, and first of all, he just talks incessantly. I'm like, get to the freaking point. I kept fast forwarding past it.
There you go.
And I started watching. I was like, okay, and this seems like a lot. I'm not going to do all that. And I went back to the 5-minute video, and I realized that the engineer guy was using the completely wrong tool to take the pedal apart.
Yeah.
But the point is in the end, he got the pedal apart. It did not matter that he used the wrong tool, or that he marked up the pedal a little bit. No one's ever going to look at that. You're the only one that's going to know about it. But in the end, the pedal was in pieces the way it should be. And the other guy was like, here's the right tool. And it's very easy to do if you have the right tool, instead of just using basically like a vice grip, which was the other guy used. And I'm like, I was like, he's the engineer. He's the one that's supposed to know all the stuff. And he's making mistakes. Sure. Clearly making mistakes. So in the end, you get to the same place. So maybe you had to watch 20 minutes of a video to use the wrong tool, but you still got to the same place. Okay. And that's what all this advice is on home theater as well. So let's talk about Jay. This is still comments, right? Yeah, Jay.
Last comment.
Some Jay. One of the Jays.
That's right. I believe it was the second J in terms of chronology of the emails arriving.
That's not going to help them at all. But anyways, Jay had a chance to talk with Gary Kubian from SVS in person. Now, this Jay knows who he is, and the other Jay knows it wasn't him. He asked if all the SVS cylinder subs are going away, or maybe there's plans for new cylinder models. Gary said the SVS engineers would love to do more cylinder subs, but the customer demand simply isn't there. I 1,000,000% believe that this is true.
Yeah. I'm not doubting
be clear.
this. Yeah.
To be clear, he's very aware that cylinder sub fans love their cylinder subs, but just in terms of raw numbers, the business case for making more cylinder subs just doesn't work out. So the PC 2000 Pro isn't going away anytime soon. That model will continue, but the PC 4000 has been discontinued, and there aren't any plans to replace it in the lineup, unfortunately. I 1,000,000% believe that this is 100% true from Gary. And not only that, I totally understand it because
I can understand it. I mean, I can bemoan it a little bit. I can be a little disappointed, but I do understand it.
I still think that there should be a focus on smaller footprints and taller subs.
Sure.
Whether they're in a box or, like a rectangle form or a cylinder form is immaterial. In the end, I think that the small footprint is the most important part of the cylinder sub. That I love cylinder subs because at my formative years of home theater, cylinder subs were like all the rage, and I had so much FOMO about them, and having them was just amazing. So yes, would I love to have a PC 2000 Pro or two of them? Yes, I would. But my room doesn't justify it. Mm-hmm. And I certainly have no reason to go out there and try to shoehorn them in there just for headroom I'm never going to use. And will I continue to recommend them? Absolutely. But they do, they're a hard sell. They're a hard sell to people who aren't hardcore enthusiasts because they're like, what is this thing? And what do I do with it afterwards? I almost wish they put like drink holders on them or something so that, so that people can look at them and say, yes, you can do other stuff.
It's the Jurassic Park scene. There you go.
Yeah. All right. Questions here. Rory has a 77-inch LG B4 OLED along with a Denon X3600H receiver and two SVS SB 2000 subs. Those were all AVRant recommendations that he followed. His theater room is a loft. I seem to remember this. It has a vaulted ceiling. It's 15 by 14, 15 long by 14 wide. He made himself 10 2 feet by 4 feet acoustic panels that are 4 inches thick, as well as two 8-inch thick bass traps, but with all of them deployed in his room, he measured with his Cross Spectrum Labs calibrated UMIC 1, which he definitely got from our recommendation.
That's right.
Using Room EQ Wizard, and it showed his RT 60 times had come down below 150 milliseconds. So he actually wound up removing some of the 4-inch thick panels until the RT 60 times were ranging from 200 to 250 milliseconds. Sounds more pleasing that way, so that's remained the setup.
Yeah, and
so
that's running a very reasonable way to come at this. I'm glad that when you're coming to the measurement, that you're looking at the results, you're like, wow, I maybe overdamped this room a little bit. And the amazing solution of not adding more panels in the form of diffusion panels, but just taking down some of the absorption got him to where he wanted to be. I like that very much.
Yeah. So he's running a 7.2.4 configuration, some old KRK RP8 studio monitors, serve as floor-level speakers, and then he has some JBL Control 1 Pro studio monitors acting as his four overhead speakers. Mm-hmm. He's decided he'd really like to get a full complement of a Ascend acoustic speaker. We should talk about Ascend more on this podcast.
We should.
If he sticks with 7.2.4, he was thinking he'd get 7 of the Sierra 2 EX version 2 bookshelf speakers plus 4 Sierra Luna V2 for overheads, all with the raw ribbon tweeters. So he's not going to spend any money. He's looking for he's looking for the entry level speakers there, and then he's also thinking he'd enjoy upgrading to a 9.2.6 configure. This is a 14 by 50 foot room. Are you going to sit on some of these speakers? Anyways, he'd enjoy a 9.2.6 configuration. So another pair of Sierra 2 EX V2s, another pair of Sierra Luna V2s. He knows that's unnecessary in his current room size. You think? You were already at unnecessary at 7.2.4, but whatever. But what if he gets a larger room in the future? What do we think of those plans to begin with? What if? Rob has 2 massive subwoofers that he can sit in his room and reach out and touch from his seat.
Quite literally reach out and touch a sub. Yep.
Because someday he might have a bigger room.
That's right.
He also has external amplification.
I do.
Because someday he might have a bigger room. Yeah. Rob, how long have you had these speakers just in case you might someday have a bigger room?
I can't remember. I mean, the subs that I bought were the PC13 Ultra prior to when they did the amplifier upgrade. So that's going back a ways, and I can't remember what year that was, but it has been a while. Don't also forget that my front 3 Ascend acoustic speakers are essentially the towers, but just put into stand mountable form factor, but they are essentially the tower size. I mean, they're the Horizon, but with like custom cabinetry that essentially makes them stand mountable towers. So not needed in a room that's even smaller than what we're dealing with Rory here.
I continue. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let me see. And I understand how the thought process you got to where you're at. I will continue to recommend that you only buy for the room you have and not the room you think you might have
disagree with that advice
in the future. Yeah. You're not wrong in that you could buy, thinking someday you're going to have a, 30-foot by 60-foot room.
Well,
but
then you wouldn't really want Sierra 2EX as your front speakers in a 30-foot room, but there you go.
But the reality is even if you do go from one room to another, there's no guarantee that it's going to be bigger. Let's start with that.
Right.
All right. Because if you do buy another house, you will want to buy it based on having a home theater room someplace, right? And maybe you can shoehorn your desire into what you actually end up with. But the reality of shopping for houses from someone who's done it a lot is that compromises happen. And when when the rest of the house is perfect, but the home theater room isn't, even you will go, oh man, this house is so perfect though. This house is so perfect. I can probably make this small home theater room work, which is what I did in this house that I'm currently in. Like I would have wanted a bigger home theater room. I did not want a room as small as what I have.
Yeah.
But the rest of the house and the price, which is the big deciding factor, were perfect for what we needed and wanted. And I just could not justify looking my wife in the eye and going, no, man, but the theater room doesn't work. So we have to keep shopping. We've been shopping for months. I've talked about it, but buy for what you have. And
I have to agree with that.
And not only that, because if you do overbuy, you may be, and I've had this problem before in my last home, where the tower speakers just never resolved properly in my room because I was too close to them.
First things first, I think Sierra 2 EX V2 bookshelf speakers as your front 3 in this room size is an A+ choice. I think that's a very, very good choice. I just wanted to mention, sometimes people are just going purely by dimensions, but it turns out that for, say, the center speaker, quite often, a slightly smaller form factor or just a shorter form factor would be a benefit. So I am very comfortable saying that the Sierra Duo left, center, right speaker, it's very close in performance to the Sierra 2 EX, if you got the same tweeter across all of them, but in a more compact form factor. It does have a little bit less bass extension, does the Duo LCR, given that more compact form factor that it has. A little bit less bass extension, but that can be a very useful form factor. Also, he was saying, he was thinking identical Sierra 2 EX bookshelf speakers all around on the floor level. If any of those are going to be wall-mounted instead of stand-mounted, I would probably prefer to get the Duo LCR, because those are easily wall-mountable versus the Sierra 2 EX or a full-size bookshelf speaker that you can't really wall-mount. A shelf mount is perfectly fine, but they're going to stick out from the wall more than the 6-inch deep Duo LCRs. So I would just keep that in mind as a quite easy drop-in replacement form factor-wise. I'm going to say do a 9.2.6 in your room size. It's not completely out of the question, but I would 100% say that if you only have one row of seats, he didn't mention having 2 rows of seats, you really don't need 6 overhead speakers if you've only got 1 row of seats. You're truly not enhancing the experience at all by going from 4 to 6 overhead if you only have 1 row of seats. And then, obviously, do you really need surround backs? Do you really need front wide speakers? Because those are the ones that are expanding you beyond the 7th floor level. But beyond all that, I just want to give the thought, if you're just enamored with the idea of, hey, I have 15 Raul Ribbon tweeters all around me. Hey, I did it, so who am I to criticize anyone for doing that sort of thing? But I'm just going to tell you from personal experience, from some quite lengthy critical listening comparison sessions that I did, I'm going to flat out say that I think you would be like full on better off for your overhead speakers, whether you go with my advice and stick with 4 of them or ignore my advice and end up with 6 of them. I would say you're going to be better off by, I have no problem with using Sierra Lunas up there, but I would opt for the less expensive Titan Dome tweeters versus the Rowell Ribbon tweeters. I say that because the Rowell Ribbon tweeters genuinely, noticeably have very narrow vertical dispersion. And for overhead speakers, I want wide dispersion, not just horizontally. I want wide dispersion in every direction because I'm trying to cover all of the seats. And the Titan Dome tweeters do an outright better job of even dispersion, like meaning vertically as well as horizontally versus wide horizontal dispersion only, and then very noticeably narrow vertical dispersion, which the Rowell Ribbon tweeters have. So I would opt for the Titan Dome tweeters for the overheads. They're less expensive if you do that. And look at the measurements. Look at the clippal measurements that SN provides, because that is not some kind of weird frequency response timbral mismatch using the Titan Domes along with the Rowell Ribbon tweeters. Dave did not land on those Titan Dome tweeters by accident. He landed on those Titan Dome tweeters because they came as close to matching the timbre of the Rowell Ribbon tweeters as he could find in a dome tweeter. And they work very well together, especially when we're talking overhead speakers. I would also argue, save some money on your surround backs. If you're going to insist on having surround backs, like, get the Sierra ones, okay? Because they are going to sound fantastic. They're going to match really, really well. They're going to have the same form factor as the Sierra 2X, but save some money and skimp, quote unquote, a little on your surround backs and get the Sierra ones instead. That's my thought on overall, and I agree with Tom. I'd probably stick with, heck, you could do 5.2.4 in here. It's really not going to be much of a compromise.
Not a compromise. It may even sound better, to be honest with you.
But yes,
in a lot of ways.
I will say, if you're just gung-ho about it, 9.2.6 can work in this room. It is definitely overkill, but I don't forbid you from doing it.
Don't forbid anybody from doing anything, really.
That's
so
right.
If he goes beyond 7.2.4, should he get a Denon A1H, or what about the A10H? And what about the Marantz counterparts? Do we think Denon and Marantz will be replacing these models soon enough that he should just wait? I would not wait.
Nope.
I don't think that there's anything else. I'm not even sure anything else will ever come out, to be honest with you.
Right, I
just
know,
stick
right?
with these forever.
I was kind of thinking
there's sales of companies going on like crazy, and private equity loves to shut stuff down. So
that's right.
No, I would not wait. But I also would not
before
put
Harman
this many
bought
speakers in there.
I thought.
Yeah.
Before Harman bought, I thought they might be the last of the Denon and Marantz. But yeah, no, I don't think you should wait. I don't think there's anything coming imminently to replace those models. So I will just say the A10H is just flat out limited to 13 speakers. Like if you're dead set on doing 9.2.6, the A10H straight up can't do that, and you would have to get the A1H to do that. Now, if you stick with my advice and you go with 4 overhead speakers and you still want 9 floor level speakers, the A10H can do that. So it could be an option for saving some money, but if you're dead set on 9.2.6, the A10H simply cannot do that. I have absolutely no justification other than if you just prefer the aesthetic looks of the Marantz front panel enough that you're willing to pay more money to get their pre-pro versions. Because again, if you want to do 9.2.6, you would have to get the AV10 pre-pro from Marantz. That's the only Marantz that does 9.2.6. It costs more than the A1H. It doesn't do anything the A1H cannot do, because the A1H has a full set of pre-outs that you can turn each of those pre-outs and the associated internal amplifier for that channel on and off individually. So there's no signal path cleanliness that's better than the Marantz or anything like that. The only thing is that all of the Marantz's pre-outs are XLR, but you have to have all of your amplification be external in that case. Whereas the A1H, you can do a mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, the A1H is absolutely the better choice here if you want to go whole hog.
So how much do those front wides get used anyways? Are they a nice addition? They're a complete waste, and they're never used.
And I disagree with
waste.
Tom. I think they're kind of here. Look, I would go as far as to say I would take front wides over surround backs if I were going to have one of them, but I had to sacrifice one of them. Yeah.
If things were mixed specifically into front wides, or if that was if they were more easily used in the system, I would agree with you, because we're more sensitive from stuff that comes from the front than from the back.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I don't think either one of them is really all that beneficial in most cases, because we're not that sensitive from the back. The surrounds do a perfectly good job of panning things behind us, and the front wides, which are only very used under very specific circumstances with very specific receivers. So that's why.
But I will just say that if you are going with the Denon, they do a good job when you're in an upmixing situation. They do utilize the front wides, because the Dolby Surround upmixer in the Denons does utilize the front wides, and so does the DTS X Pro Neural X upmixer that's in there. They do utilize the front wides. So this isn't a case where the front wides will only ever get used with Atmos soundtracks that specifically have objects that go through the front wide locations like some other processors. This is one where it's like, no, the front wides will be making sound fairly frequently when you're using a Denon and you're using their upmixer. I like them as a nice addition, and I would take them over surround backs, but you can definitely get away with not having them.
The upmixer part, because there's a lot of people out there who will both put in a bunch of speakers and then also insist on only using whatever speakers were used in the original mix. Therefore, they're shooting themselves in the foot in this case. So if you're not somebody who uses an upmixer pretty regularly, which I do, so I'm not, I would have no problems with that. But if you're not, if you're somebody who's like, if it's a 5.1 mix, I want to hear 5.1, then front wides and these extra speakers really don't do you any good. He says he's not really all that interested in using DRAC. He's been a fan of Obsessive Compulsive Audiophile's Odyssey 1 program, with the latest version sounding most impressive to Rory's ears. Do we have any opinions about that?
That is A-OK, man.
Fine with me. If it's like, who am I to sit here and say that it sounds good to me? What do you think? What? I'm not in your room. I'm not sitting there with you. I've been in people's rooms where I'm sitting there listening to stuff with them. They're like, sounds great, doesn't it? And my honest opinion is, are you actually serious right now? Because it sounds like straight garbage. Sure. I look them in the eye.
He's looking for a little confirmation. That's all.
Yeah. I look them in the eye and go, yep, it sounds great. So yeah, I'm not in your room. I don't know how it sounds. If it sounds good to you, that's all that matters. Oh, it's your room.
There is nothing about the Odyssey 1 program where I'm like, oh, there's no way that could work. I'm like, no, that's all reasonable. That's perfectly reasonable stuff that's going on there, and that's A-OK by me. The only thing I will say is, if you were to pay the full upgrade price and go all the way to Dirac Art, which I don't think you need to do because you have a dedicated room that is fully acoustically treated, and where Dirac Art is definitely making the biggest difference is in rooms where you can't fully acoustically treat it, and that's great. I'm super glad that there's an active room treatment alternative for rooms where you can't acoustically treat it. So I don't think you need a but. That is Dirac Art is something that no form of Odyssey can fully replicate. That is a truly unique to Dirac thing. But I don't think you need it. If you're happy with Odyssey 1, I think you should continue using it. I give it a big thumbs up.
Nick got some new theater seats, the Audio Advice Revelation Luxury models. It's a long name, so they got to be good. One nice feature is they have USB-C ports for charging your phone right near the cup holders. His family is immediately taken to using them. So they got him thinking maybe it would be useful to replace some of the electrical wall outlets in his house with ones that include the USB-C charging ports. Leviton has some that would fit right in without looking at the place at all. But he noted that the specs say USB-C ports can deliver 30 watts. All of his Apple chargers that they have are 20 watts. So would the difference be a problem? Like, could it degrade the battery life of the devices and make the batteries die sooner if they stuck to using Apple chargers? I saw this question come in and I was like, I would never have thought of that, but now that you said it, I'm like, I don't know, maybe. But it always seems to me the case that it's not like it shoves 30 watts into your device. Right. It has 30 watts available. So the problem almost always in these cases where you're looking at power imbalances or power requirement differences is that if you have too much available, it doesn't shove it in there. It just takes what it needs and that's it. Whereas the opposite, if it only has 20 watts available and you need 30, that's when you run into the problem. But
yeah, the analogy of audio amplifiers is actually quite apt here. Yeah, the notion that, you have a speaker that's rated to go up to 150 watts of power, and then you have a 200 watt amplifier. Is that going to be like a problem. It's like, no, the power of the amplifier or the power of the charger in this case is not pushed into the device. That's not how it works. You can also use the analogy of, like, let's say you have a water wheel, right? And so you've got like water that's at the top of a waterfall and it's falling down, and you're going to have a water wheel that's going to get spun by the water that's falling down at some point. Let's say the height of that waterfall is 30 feet, right? And you put the water wheel 20 feet lower than the top of that waterfall. Like, that doesn't stop the water wheel from working just because there's another 10 feet below it. And that's kind of what's going on here. It's like, if you have a water wheel that its max, the fastest it could spin is if it had all the energy where it's at the full 30-foot bottom of there. But okay, you'd need to put it down there. And if the waterfall were only 20 feet high, then that water wheel would never get to its maximum spin because it needs the potential energy now turned into kinetic energy of the water having fallen 30 feet rather than 20 feet. And so if the maximum it can do is the 30-foot distance, but the waterfall itself is only 20 feet high, you're never going to get to the maximum spin. But if you go the other way around and the waterfall is 30 feet high, but you put the water wheel at a 20-foot distance from there, that's perfectly fine. You're not going to like break the water wheel just because there's another 10 feet below it. So that's what's going on with the charger here. Perfectly fine. If you want to not degrade an iPhone's battery life, the main thing is actually the advice that they give, which is like, don't charge it all the way to 100. And don't let the battery go below 20%. Keep it between 20 and 80% ideally, and that's honestly the way to do the longevity. Finally, in the newest iPhones, you set that charging limit so that if you plug it in overnight and you fall asleep, it doesn't just like charge itself up to 100%, which the old iPhones always did. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I've actually watched videos that explain the entire thing about how the transfer of the charge between the across the barrier or whatever in the lithium ion
specifically for
work.
lithium ion, it's like those can be recharged a lot if you don't go to the maximum ends of the battery.
Yeah. So I should set mine to maximum charge at 80, but there's some part of me that just drives me nuts when it does that. So I want to see 100% on there. I'm a bad person. Anyways, my phone shut up. Ash. So Ash found out that if he sets his PS5 to output linear PCM, everything sounds fine. All of his other source devices sound fine too. But if he switches his PS5 to output either Dolby or DTS, all of a sudden there's this strange wind or fluttering type noise constantly coming out of all of his speakers. Any idea what's going on? Nope.
So it's a thing called comfort noise, which is actually like explicit in the NVIDIA Shield. I don't know if they coined that term or just kind of brought it to popularity. But the whole idea is, how sometimes if you have an AV receiver and you're switching between like codecs, like going from Dolby Digital to DTS or something like that, there's like that like moment where it goes silent for a second as it switches over in the decoder. And you've maybe had the experience of an AV receiver where if nothing is playing for a while, right, it kind of goes silent, and then when the sound comes back, there's like that moment of silence before it kicks back in and is active again. So comfort noise is just this like very quiet little shh sound that's playing all of the time so that the AV receiver's decoder like never goes idle or never switches to a different format or something in between. So yeah, the PS5 is like capable of outputting that. There's no like dedicated setting for turning it off, but if you go into the PS5 sound settings, you can change the HDMI device type. And so like I imagine if you're manually switching it to output, say Dolby Digital rather than linear PCM, it's because you're switching from say a full-on AV receiver where linear PCM would be the better choice to maybe a soundbar, right? Something like that doesn't decode multi-channel linear PCM, but it's fine with Dolby Digital. Or maybe you're switching it to use the TV's built-in speakers or something along those lines. Switching that HDMI device type to match the device you're actually using is not a guarantee because the comfort noise might still be there. I'm guessing you're using some fairly sensitive speakers because normally that comfort noise is inaudible. But yeah, switching the HDMI device type is about the only way you can alter the level of that comfort noise.
Okay. I have never heard of that before, but
yeah,
whatever. Mark says he's suffering from decision paralysis. He currently has an old Sharp brand projector that is ceiling mounted. He's enjoying it, but it seems to be on his last legs now. It's a finished basement setup, so he does have full light control. His cables all have been run inside the walls and ceiling, including an old HDMI cable to the projector's location that cannot handle 4K. He's included a rough diagram of his wire layout and equipment positions. And his budget for a new display is around $2,200 or so. Sounds like he got a bonus. $2,200 is kind of specific. Yeah, so if you're not seeing this image, it's because you're not on the YouTube video where the images will be integrated, or you're not haven't gone to our website and clicked on the Flickr album so you can follow along. So this is his current setup. He's got some middle.
Those are
so he's got
middles. Yeah,
looks like
5.1.2.
1.2. Yeah, only one subwoofer.
That's right.
So yeah, there he goes. So first, he will mostly be using the new display to watch 24p movies. He uses an Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K Max for streaming purposes, but given that almost all of the streaming services now charge extra for 4K, it's pretty much in all 1080p for him these days. Yeah, when I first set up the TV, the Apple TV came on automatically, and I started playing something, but I was messing with the TV settings and everything else, and you could tell that the YouTube was in 1080p because it was in a box in the top left corner. I was like, yep, there it is. He does play video games, though, as well, using an Xbox Series X. So that's not his top priority, but the new display will be used for that as well. He is reluctant to move his seating position at all, but he does understand that he could put a new flat panel TV on a stand that is closer to his seat than the current 100-inch wall-mounted projection screen. Well, there's 116s now, buddy. So, yeah.
That's right.
They're coming. His current projector is a Sharp Z15000 or 15000, which is 1080p and DLP. As mentioned, that's projecting onto a 100-inch daylight screen, and his receiver is a Denon S750H, which tops out at HDMI 2.0 support. It does support 4K 60 with HDR10 or Dolby Vision. It does not support HDR10 Plus. It does have eARC and can decode Dolby Atmos, DTS, and DBTS-X, even though it maxes out at 7 speakers. So he's considering the options of a 98-inch mid-tier TCL, a higher-tier 85-inch TCL, and an Epson 4K projector, or save the money and go with an Epson 1080p projector. Before we dig into all of that, he does already own a 48-inch LG C2 OLED, so his Sharp projector is not the only viewing experience in his house. He has optimized its picture setting for jitter-free playback of 24p movies, but he says he noticed the stutter. He does notice it. His wife does not. He's also owned more than one projector over the past 20 years and feels as though DLP-based projectors appear more film-like to him. So could we talk a bit about that first? Is that just all in his head, or is there actually something to it? And since none of his proposed options are a DLP projector, is he just going to be dissatisfied with the look of 24p films no matter what? So
persistent stutter. That's the term for what you're viewing. Some people are more sensitive to it than others, but persistent stutter is what's going on. Yeah.
So with LCDs and
OLEDs.
And OLEDs for that matter, the idea here is that there's not the flashing of the image. That's right.
It's sample and hold. The entire frame goes up there and is on the screen until the next frame.
Yeah. And when that frame changes, that's where we can be sensitive. Some people can be sensitive to that change, and that change makes it not feel as lifelike or realistic as something that flashes up there, like a CRT or plasmas for that matter,
or a DLP. DLP flashes at you the image. It doesn't just hold the entire frame up there. It is flashing at you the way, not the way, but similar to how plasmas and CRTs create the image.
So one of the ways the LCDs can get around it is by putting those black images in between to kind of imitate this flashing that we're used to.
Total light output.
Yeah, it does.
As a consequence.
But he's mostly worried about these 24p films. So, you could do that. Yeah, the lower light output would be problematic. I mean, personally, I sympathize with your position. I understand what you're saying. There's also a big part of me that's like, the options that are available to you are not, are going to be all kind of using the same technology, at least at this price point. So
everything you mentioned is LCD, whether it's projector or flat panel. Those are all LCD displays.
So yes, I understand that you're sensitive to it, and I wish that you weren't, but you might just have to be like, well, that's just something I have to deal with and get used to. And you will, in fact, get used to it. That's just the reality of the situation.
But the other thing I would say is that the modern and good little bit of video processing, and we're not talking, it doesn't look like soap opera effect anymore, right? It used to, but it is doing some frame generation. It is doing some interpolation, but they've gotten a lot better at it. Like the good versions of it have gotten a lot better at it. So like on LG OLEDs, if you use their cinematic movement setting, it does not suddenly look like soap opera effect, but it does just ameliorate that little bit of 24p film stutter by doing a little bit of frame generation. It's faking some frames. There's no bones about it, but it looks a lot better. Sony's processing looks very, very good on that front. So that is something to maybe consider. I wouldn't say that TCL's version of it is necessarily top tier. Like that could be a reason to consider a different brand when you're choosing your television here if you go with flat panel, because it is possible you might be averse to even the idea of activating any sort of motion processing. We're not talking about jacking it up to 10, where it's the single slider or the cinematic movement on the LG. Right. It does a very good job these days.
Yeah. All right. So what display do we think you should get? The 98-inch TCL QM7K, the 85-inch TCL QM8K. He does appreciate that the 85-inch will be easier to position and also a bit less e-waste when the time comes to dispose of it versus the 98.
I would not factor that in. Whether it's an 85-inch TV or a 98-inch TV, the e-waste side of it I don't really think is a factor.
So the Epson 3800, the Epson 2200, which is the only option that wouldn't necessitate running new HDMI cables inside of its walls and ceiling. Or should it be considered an ultra-short throw projector or some other model of projector or TV? The options just seem to overwhelm him, so can we help him out?
I'm making faces over here, but...
I know. The ultra-short throw would be, to me, the easiest to solve all of the problems. I just don't think you can do it with the cost. You know what I mean? You get
for a really satisfying experience.
Yeah, for $2,200, I don't know that you can get a good enough ultra short throw projector that you would be super happy with.
That's the issue, all right.
I like it because you have your screen; it's already there. You have a wire running your wall that you can't do anything with, and chasing it down might be very problematic for you. I don't know if you've got conduit or not. I imagine you probably don't, but because most people don't. You could just run the wire right there because it's at the front of the room, sort of thing. And if you're already considering a flat panel, then you still get the projector experience without having to worry about how big of a screen change you're going to have. In fact, most short throw projectors want 120 anyways, so you might be a little bit better off going. It's going to get extra bright because you're going to be a little bit closer to it than what they really want. So, Rob, which one do you think you should get?
Can I say none of those? Because that's kind of my honest opinion, is that I don't really think I'd point you at any of those. I'm really, really tempted. Because he said, he's not completely opposed to going all the way down to an 85-inch screen size. You can put it on a stand. You can move it a foot off the wall. You can move your seats 1 foot closer, and voila, You've got a viewing angle. That's the same as your old 100-inch experience. I think you should get a B5 OLED, the 83-inch. Because it's right in striking distance of the price that you were talking about at current, in the US, it's not going to be called Boxing Day sales, but essentially Christmas sales anyway. It's right in that price range. You are coming down in screen size, but like I said, LG's cinematic movement processing, I think, is the thing you want. Because you're concerned about how that 24 frames per second film looks when it's on any of these displays. Like I say, the projectors you mentioned are LCD as well. They're going to have that issue too. They don't work like DLP. So that's where I land. I think you should get an 83-inch LG B5 OLED.
Okay. I can get behind that.
Yeah. It's going to be fantastic for gaming too.
Yeah, it is. So he didn't draw the actual pathways of the cables that are inside of his walls and ceiling diagram. The real life paths are circuitous, to say the least. So if he ends up with a large flat panel at the front of the room, the HDMI cables from there to the equipment closet will actually need to be about 100 feet long. So his stuff is at the back, basically, is what we're hearing, or another room.
Well, I think it's winding through walls and stuff. He's probably got pipes and soffits to work around that you don't see in the just in the diagram of what's going to what. It's like, physically speaking, he's got to wind around a whole path. Yeah.
So what sort of HDMI cable would you recommend for that? Is it going to be prohibitive? Can you even get a reliable 2.1 cable of that length? So you're going to want one of the fiber optic HDMI solutions that are active.
Show.
So which one is that, Rob?
And we're going through walls, we're going through ceilings, we're routing around winding paths. There is no better solution than, I'm so glad that exists, Rui Pro's detachable fiber optic based HDMI ultra high speed 48 gigabits per second cables. These have the detachable ends and then a data center standard fiber optic cable that you're actually running, which means you don't have to deal with routing the actual HDMI plugs through that circuitous route. It's just a data center cable with a much smaller end, and then you attach the ends that you need after you've run the cable inside your walls and ceilings. So the 100-foot length, $125. I don't really think that's that bad. There's no better solution.
It goes up to 200 meters, by the way.
Oh, it could, yeah.
660 feet for $310.
If you need to, that's right. But he said he needs about 100 feet, and that one costs $125. So yeah.
So if you wanted a little bit extra, you can get 130 feet for $146.60.
Exactly.
On their website. Yeah. So yeah, that's a very good solution. Mohsen in Australia. Mohsen wants to get an external hard drive for movie storage and playback. He'd like the capacity to be at least 20 terabytes. Trying to find an SSD option of that capacity. It doesn't really seem to be readily available. And the 16 terabyte solid state drives that are readily available are prohibitively expensive. So what speed should he be looking at if he's getting a regular old spinning external hard drive? That is massive. Can't you get like more than one of the smaller, cheaper SSDs and then like daisy chain them together or whatever?
Even then, the price works up there. Even the 8 terabyte SSDs, and to go over 20 terabytes, you'd need 3 of them. Like that ends up costing a pretty penny. Also, for movie storage, I don't think SSDs are a necessity. For storing and playing back movies, they don't need crazy speed. So here's the thing. You don't really have a choice. Once you get beyond 16 terabyte like spinning hard drives, they're going to be 7,200 RPM. I don't think I've ever seen a 5,400 RPM. I guess there are the even faster 10,000 RPM ones, but like pretty much all of the external USB hard drives that you're going to find at that capacity are going to be 7,200 RPM, which is totally fine for storing and playing back 4K movies off of that. About the only thing you have a choice of is the cache size, whether it's going to be 256 megabyte or 512 megabytes of cache that's built in there. For movies, it doesn't make a lick of difference. I mean, it's just reading and playing. You're not dealing with like dynamic read-write things. You're either saving the movie to the hard drive or you're playing it back. You're not doing dynamic read-write where the cache would make a difference. So honestly, I don't think it's ultimately going to make you're not going to have that choice. It's going to be a 7,200 RPM. It's probably going to be a 512 megabyte because almost all of them are. And that's going to be perfectly fine for storing and playing back 4K movies.
All right. Brian saw an article in PC Mag saying that LG is adding Microsoft's Copilot to all of its TVs, whether customers want it or not. He's got a 77-inch LG C5 OLED, and he most definitely does not want it. He finds these sorts of force changes irritating and potentially intrusive. Just do what I do, and don't ever go to the home screen. Then you have to see it.
There's part of that.
He'd honestly prefer for his TVs to just be monitors. He'd rather use external devices for all of his sources anyway. So how does he disable all of the smart features in his LG TV? Disable, I don't think you can really disable all the smart features.
Like not 100%.
No. All you can do is do what I do and, turn off all the processing and stuff that you don't want it to do, all that stuff, and then never go to the home screen and just ignore that that stuff.
The other thing you can do is just not have it connected to the internet.
You can. Yes.
I don't mean not ever. Because initially I would connect it, I'd get all the updates, I'd do all that sort of thing, and you have to agree to all the user license agreements and all that sort of thing. So initially I would have it connected, but once you've done the initial setup, if you're really not planning to use any of the built-in apps, I would just disconnect it from the internet. I would not allow it to connect to the Wi-Fi, and I would not plug in an Ethernet cable. It's not that all the apps are going to like disappear from the TV. It's not that you still don't have that license agreement, but at that point, the apps, like, they can't contact any server because they don't have an internet connection.
So he asked, what would he be missing out on doing so? Updates, for the most part. If there is some sort of major firmware update for your TV. But if your TV is working fine, do you need updates?
You also wouldn't be able to use the voice remote. If your TV has a voice remote, you won't be able to use that if it's not connected to the internet. So
he asks, what is the forced Microsoft Copilot inclusion going to be like for customers? I mean, it's just another voice searching thing. So, I mean,
it's not even that.
Really?
Yeah, this is kind of dinky. LG made it clear it's not an app. The Microsoft Copilot is not an app. It's just a shortcut. It's literally just launching the built-in TV's web browser and going to the Copilot web page, which is like pretty lame. It's like it's not doing anything to control the TV. This is like using it for AI generated search on a web page. It's kind of nothing. It's slow. It's janky. It's really useless. So LG said the microphone is not activating unless you launch that shortcut. I don't know, not everybody believes them, but I think that probably is the case. Also, it's not actually true right this moment, but they are going to let people remove it because enough people complained that they don't want even the icon for the shortcut. They don't want it to be there, so they are going to let people remove it after all. So honestly, it's a nothing burger. There's nothing to it.
All right, very exciting. Infinite Gary, what's the oldest piece of home theater or audio gear that each of us has that we still use on a regular basis? I'm going to remind you that my house flooded.
That's right.
There is maybe these headphones. So
that could be.
This is Audio Technica. I'm sorry, Techniques Audio Timer from 1985. The SH4020. It cost $100 back then. An audio timer. So what is this for? Like CDs or something?
I would guess. What else would it be?
It's a judder. It's an anti-judder thing, I guess, is what this is for.
Jitter. Yeah, jitter in this case. I would
jitter, right?
Maybe,
right.
Maybe it's for. Could it be for a tape deck? Could be for a tape deck.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. What's your oldest piece of gear?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it's my Yamaha receiver that I still have and I still use sometimes. RX V2500. That's going back to 2004. That one came out. So I think that's it.
I think it's these headphones. Be honest with you.
Could be
the Oppo, whichever ones these are.
PM somethings
probably says on here someplace. PM2s.
PM2s. There you go.
I can't think of anything that would be older. That's audio wise. So, Art asks, would it be better to use an Apple TV 4K for streaming rather than the built-in Roku apps on his TCL 8 Series TV? Are there actual audio or video advantages? It depends on how fast the built-in Roku apps on your TCL gets any updates or changes. Overall, they should all have access to the same stuff. Have been occasions where like LG's YouTube app gets access to HDR and nobody else does. But generally speaking, it's kind of all the same. You just have to. Roku in particular is kind of full of ads, and Apple TV 4K really isn't. So that's why I would prefer the Apple TV 4K.
That's kind of the main thing. Yeah, we can't say that Apple TV 4K is like literally a cure-all for every app because it doesn't outright have the very best version of every single app. That unfortunately just isn't the case. It'd be wonderful if it were that easy and we could just say that, but it's not the case. So it is a little bit app by app specific. Obviously, the thing I point out most with the Apple TV 4K is that it does the best job in an overall sense. Again, not literally every app, but it does the best job overall of automatically matching the frame rate of whatever you're watching. But that said, even though the built-in Roku apps on the TCL 8 series don't necessarily like literally match the frame rate, the TCL does a fantastic job of if what's coming in is a 60 frames per second signal, However, that the original was like whatever the original signal was that's then put into a 60 frames per second container, it does a very good job of like, if it needs to do inverse telecine, it does that very well. If it needs to do reverse 3-2 pull down, it does that very well. So ultimately, the literally matching the frame rate is not that important. The TCL does a very good job of getting you back to judder free, regardless of what the 60 hertz container, what the original signal put into there was. So yeah, truthfully speaking, there's not like some across the board massive audio video advantage that you're really going to notice. It mainly is the ads, the difference in the ads, and then there could be a few instances of specific apps where one or the other has a slight advantage. There you go. So it can't be a blanket statement.
All right. So his AV receiver is an Yamaha Avantage RX A2040. It has HDMI 2.0 ports, but it doesn't support Atmos or HDR. It's limited to ARC, not eARC. On top of that, the HDMI cable he ran from that receiver to his TCL TV is high speed, not high speed premium. So he's just been using an optical audio cable to send audio from his TV's built-in apps to the receiver. If he gets an Apple TV 4K for streaming, would it be worth his while to upgrade that HDMI cable from the receiver to the TV? The HDMI cable would need to be about 40 feet long. No.
Nah, I don't think you'd want to plug the Apple TV 4K into that receiver. It's going to be
plug it
limiting
into
things.
the TV and then send the audio back to the receiver, kind of the way you've been doing it, honestly.
Yeah, well, given that what that receiver supports is regular ARC and not eARC, there's not really any advantage to using the HDMI cable to send the audio back downstream versus
Just
an
use
optical. They're the same. So I would leave the optical in place, and if you do get an Apple TV 4K, I would plug it straight into your TCL.
Yeah, that's what I agree with that.
Yeah.
Jay says, "Hey Rob, what am I, Swiss cheese over here?"
Well, you're going to see why.
I know. If he were to switch his Rogers cable TV subscription, which really is it only gets used for sports news and some reality TV shows for the women in the house these days, switch that over to the less expensive Rogers streaming IPTV option, what would be the benefits and drawbacks? How long is this going to take?
A couple of minutes.
So I gotta pee.
I would think so. All right. The reason it's for me is that Rogers is a Canadian cable company here. I've certainly been looking at their IPTV offering as well, and there definitely are some pretty stark differences going on between their regular cable subscription, where you still use like their provided little cable box. It's a very little unit, and it really is just streaming, but it's still their own little box. Versus you can switch over to their Rogers streaming IPTV service, where you optionally can use one of their boxes, but you can also just use an Amazon Fire TV device with the Rogers streaming app on there instead. Now, that's one of the limitations. Their app really only works on Amazon Fire TV devices. So if your preference is for some other streaming device, that Rogers streaming app is not available on everything. Like, it's not on the Apple TV 4K. They certainly have plans to bring them to other devices in the future, but right now it's the Amazon Fire TV devices. So that's one thing to be aware of. And then there's pretty big differences in the channel lineups. The sports channels are not on the Rogers streaming. They're expecting you to add on, in our cases, it's the TSN Plus and Sportsnet Plus streaming packages if you want to get the sports channels. So once you do that, the cost savings really don't change. They're not there because you're adding on those relatively expensive sports streaming packages if you want them. Those channels are not part of the Rogers streaming IPTV service. Then on top of that, with the regular cable service, you can use their cloud DVR, you can record programs, you can fast forward, rewind. There is no recording on the Rogers streaming IPTV version of television. You can't set recordings of any kind, so you're limited to using their video on demand service, which has more restrictions on fast forwarding and rewinding because they don't let you skip the ads. All in all, I don't necessarily think that streaming IPTV, like if you're not a sports fan, then you're saving money because it's not those sports channels aren't included in there. But if you are a sports fan, you're going to end up adding the Sportsnet Plus and the TSN Plus anyway, and then not being able to record, being more limited on the shuttle controls when you're using the video on demand. All in all, I'm not certain that it's really the greatest deal. I haven't chosen to do it. I'm sticking with the regular cable subscription. So Jay's AV receiver is a Marantz Cinema 50. He sometimes presses either the movie, music, or game listening mode buttons on the remote to change the sound mode. I've moved on to section B here, Tom. He's noticed that if he goes to the default sound mode, from the default sound mode to, say, Oro of some kind, he notices an audible change in the sound. He expected that. But then if he selects that same sound mode just a second time, he'd swear a lot of the time that something in the audio changes yet again. Typically, the difference seems like the sound got more expansive. That's the word that he used. But other times, it's so subtle he figures maybe it's all just in his head. So is he going crazy, or is there actually some genuine difference that's happening? And if so, what is that difference?
So he's pressing the same button more than once.
I mean, I wasn't totally clear because he's like, he selected the same sound mode again. Because obviously, if you're just like pressing the movie button or the music button or the game button over and over, you're going through different sound modes entirely. Like you're going from Dolby to DTS to Oro to, Marantz's own virtual or something like that. And I would expect to hear differences there. But he's like, no, he just selected the same sound mode that he's gone to a second time, and the sound seems to change.
So that's interesting. There's two possible explanations for this. Like Rob said, if you have an Oro 3D button or whatever, or a DTS button, and you click it more than once, there oftentimes, even within the DTS or there might be different sound modes within that you be switching between. But you should be able to see that on the front of your receiver. Maybe he doesn't have access to the front of his receiver where he's seeing it. But if you're flicking between different sound modes, like the first time you're going from, let's say it defaults to DTS 5.1, and then you switch to Oro, and you're like, okay, let me keep hitting the sound button and I'll go through. Well, your perception of how the sound has changed is in relation to the sound mode that was directly preceding it. Yep. So if you're not always going from DTS 5.1 to Oro, if the second time you go around all the sound modes, you went from Dolby Digital or Dolby Atmos to Oro, then that change that you're hearing is because it's not the Oro being different. It's the difference between going from DTS to Oro as opposed to going from Atmos to Oro. So that's the change that that's what I would suspect was.
But he did specifically mention Oro in his email, and like there is Oro 2D and there's Oro 3D. And so when you select Oro, it switches between Oro 2D and Oro 3D.
Which is the first thing I said.
That's right. So I'm guessing that's what's going on here. Yeah. I think you're just switching between Oro 2D and Oro 3D, and that's explained, which is a genuine difference. Like it actually is up mixing differently in Oro 2D versus 3D. So I think that's what's going on there.
So he's got an HDMI cable that runs through a conduit in the seating riser. That HDMI cable has died. He needs about a 25 to 30 foot length. He was thinking he'd just bite the bullet and go blue jeans. He's actively trying to avoid buying anything from he's actively trying to avoid buying anything from the USA right now. So is there a non-US option? Hey, all the stuff coming from the USA is also a non-USA option. I hate to break it to you. We ain't making nothing here. They keep saying that we're gonna, and we're not. Okay, they're closing. There's closing Jim Beam factories down. We're not even making whiskey anymore here. So don't worry about that. But the Rui Pro that we just talked about would be the perfect option for this.
Yeah, so. and you like. Obviously, they're available through U.S. retailers, but they're available through Canadian retailers as well. So you can get it through a Canadian retailer, and Rui Pro themselves is a Chinese company. So, or I think they are anyway. I'm not even 100% sure on that, but I think they are.
Doesn't matter.
But regardless,
China anyways. So
put aside the country of origin. I think that's the best solution here, because anything that's going through conduit, routed, or anything like that, I love this solution of the data center fiber optic cable with the detachable ends. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, Cables to Go had a solution that was kind of like that a long time ago.
And so did Monoprice.
Yeah, and Monoprice did as well. But it was, proprietary ends and everything else. Right. And this is the one. This is the one today. Yeah. Henry was trying to decide whether to build his physical media music collection based on vinyl or CD. Guess what I'm going to say?
Yeah. It's going to be a big surprise.
It's a huge shock. So if you're looking for confirmation, then you've come to the right place. If you had a different thing,
he's already decided.
So it actually largely came down to a matter of storage, and since his Blu-ray cabinet can also easily hold CDs, that swayed him in that direction. Oh, good. because we're all on the same page here. So his intention is to use a Panasonic UB9000 Ultra HD Blu-ray player as his primary CD player. Naturally, is already connected to his audio system via HDMI for movie watching purposes, but it also has dedicated analog audio outputs with supposedly high-end DACs that it mentions are ideal for music playback because some DACs aren't.
That's right.
Can you
Good for
imagine
sound, but not for
being in
sound.
a shop and designing a digital to analog converter and going, but let's not make it good for music because there's never any music in
Indeed. Yeah.
We'll go through here. So question to us, what's going to be the difference if he uses the existing HDMI connection versus adding an RCA analog connection? Are the RCA connections necessary? Will using them make an audible difference or improvement? Okay. Audible difference or improvement is really the question here because the DACs themselves are. I've been saying it for at least a decade. DACs are a solved device. These things technically on paper can get better, but in no way subjectively are any better than over the years. They're a solved thing. It's like, which is the best water, like a gardening hose? We know how to make a gardening hose, and there might be different ones for different applications based on size or color or whatever, but the reality is the water always comes out, and it always comes out in a very predictable way based on the diameter of the hose.
We're also definitely talking about CD quality here.
Yes.
So we're not worried about higher sampling rates, higher bit rates.
No.
Definitely CD because these are literally CDs he's playing.
Yeah, literally CDs he's playing. So can there be an audible difference or improvement? I think the answer is yes, but it has nothing to do with the DACs and everything to do with whatever settings you have set up in either the player or the receiver or something else. So there can be some audible differences, but can you replicate those differences with the HDMI connection? And the answer is also yes. So
what's going to be the difference here? Misattribution. Misattribution is going to be the difference here. That's the only thing.
You're gonna blame give credit to the analog connection for the difference, or blame the HDMI.
That's right.
Cable for the difference, but it's really going to be in a setting someplace. Like your AV receiver will have different speaker settings for your analog connections, or your room correction won't work on the analog connections that come in, or something along those lines. So that's what's going to happen.
Your AV receiver, I guarantee you, any AV receiver can handle 2-channel 44.1 kilohertz 16-bit PCM. Your AV receiver can definitely handle that every bit as well as any possible external CD player could ever do that. Also, unless you're turning off all of your like bass management, room correction, processing of any kind, unless you're turning all of that signal's getting turned back into digital inside the AV receiver anyway. So my opinion is send it to it digitally to begin with. Continue using the HDMI cable, add nothing else. Objectively speaking, that is absolutely the connection path you should use. Don't worry about the RCAs.
Brandon, this is the last question we're going to do.
Okay.
Brandon's room is light control. He's been using a projector in there, but it can also be a bright room if desired. And he's thinking he'd like to put a 65-inch OLED in there for when it isn't projector time. So what will we say is the best 65-inch OLED for when the room lighting conditions are bright? Can he get away with the LG B5, or should he spend more than that, which he is willing to do if needed? 65-inch TV, it seems awfully small for something that has a projector in there. So I'm a little curious as to why you landed on 65 inches as being the correct screen size for what you're doing. But that given, an LG is certainly the direction I would push you, even though I just bought a Samsung, so don't listen to me, I suppose. But
no, to me, because he's like, this is specifically for when the room is bright. That's when I want to use this because I've got a projector for when it's dark.
Why isn't he using an LCD? Why is he going for LG in that case?
That makes sense. I'd still want an OLED. The black stay completely black. The contrast is still noticeable. But I'm going to make the argument here, because you know me. If I can save you money, I'm going to save you money. But I'm going to make the argument in the scenario that he laid out that the LG C5, I do think actually might be worth it here. Because honestly, like, if we're talking full screen brightness, if we're talking sustained brightness, if we're talking standard dynamic range brightness, the C5 is genuinely a noticeable step brighter than the B5. Now, if we're calibrating it for a dark room, there's not going to be a difference. But when we're like, no, I'm not stopping at 120 nits for peak white because I'm using this in a brightly lit environment, like the C5, honest to goodness, does have it's about twice as bright in terms of capability versus the B5. Like, this is talking going well above the 120 nit like black room standard. So I think it's a pretty reasonable argument to make here that upgrading to the C5 would be worth it. Now, the LG G5 is the brightest OLED that's out there. It is brighter than the C5, but the difference from B5 to C5 really genuinely quite noticeable in a bright room. From C5 to G5, maybe noticeable, but not the same type of gap. And given the difference in price, again, the C5 is like the clear value champ here. The other one you'd look at for bright room setting could be the Samsung S95F. It's actually not as bright as the G5, like for this type of setting, and a little bit brighter than the C5. But the big thing here is that the Samsung S95F has the matte screen versus the LGs are all fully glossy screens. Some people really prefer it. Some people really dislike it. I fall on the disliking it side. I don't like the way the matte screen looks. But if the number one thing that bothers you when you're watching in a bright room is you can see your own reflection when the screen goes black, well, the matte screen does a much better job of turning you into a fuzz blob versus you can just see your own reflection in the glossy screen. But the S95F costs as much as a G5. Right, so you're paying that money just to get the matte screen. That's what you're only doing. Now, that might 100% be worth it to you, because like I say, some people, their number one thing is like, I don't want to see my own reflection looking at the screen. So the matte screen could be worth it to you there. But ultimately, I think the C5 is the way to go here.
Well, Dave's pretty short. Let's just do Dave.
It is, yeah, that's perfect.
So Dave is moving from, is that Minnesota?
Yep.
NM? What's NM? New Mexico? No, what's NM? MN? Minnesota?
MN is Minnesota.
Yeah. Anyways, Dave's moving from Minnesota to Florida. His new place in Florida will be a rental. It has an enclosed room upstairs that's just over 11 by 15 and a half. He's buying new speakers and a new receiver. He intends to go with SVS Ultra Evolution Series and Denon.
I'm okay with that.
Sounds good. He'll be running dual subs. The volume of air in the room is around 1,500 cubic feet. So would there be any benefit to getting the SVS Ultra Evolution towers? Not where I thought that sentence was going.
That's right. That's right.
I thought that we were talking about subs for a second.
It's not going to be one we have to ponder over, Tom.
Or should he save the money in floor space and get the bookshelf speaker? Yes. Get the bookshelf speakers. Are you okay?
I'm going to argue that in this room size, the towers are an outright detriment.
It is. I would 1,000% agree. Yeah. Getting them to resolve at the distances that you'll be is just going to be a nightmare.
And positioning them for the boundary reinforcement effects in the base, like positioning them for imaging, honestly, is going to be so much more challenging. Yeah. This is not a big room. It's 11 feet wide, dude.
Yeah. You'd be sitting on them. You have to lay them down on the floor, put the TV above them. Yeah, no, this is not.
Yeah, I can't force you to do anything, but I can implore you, please get the bookshelves for this room. That's right.
So we'll be starting with a 5.2 speaker set, but he does want to gradually upgrade to a 7.2.4 configuration. Would paying more for the Denon X4800H get him anything worthwhile, or should he just stick with the 3800H? I don't think you should go with 7.2.4 to start with. 5.2.4 is probably the max I would do in here, but I don't know how many people he has in this room, or how many.
He's going to end up with the same choices, though. Yeah. If he does go from 7.2.4 to 5.2.4, he's going to end up with the same receiver choices.
Yeah, it's still a 3800H. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 3800H. Let's see. What does the 4800H get to? The 3800H does not have any component video input. The 4800H has one that gets converted to HDMI. So if you desperately need a component video input, it adds a second 12-volt trigger output. The 3800H only has one 12-volt trigger output. And then there's something to do with Zone 2 that the 4800H, that the 3800H doesn't. But unless you need those very specific features, save the money, get the 3800H. We saved Dave so much money on that question.
We did. Yeah. This is... I guess let's just finish the last question. My wife.
Oh,
saw
should
me.
we? No, end of the year, man. End of the year.
year.
Well, these are all this could take a while. These are hypotheticals.
Well, let's hypothetically go fast. Okay. So Jay, which is the second Jay from before.
That's right.
Some hypothetical questions and thoughts you'd like to hear us discuss. Does the interior of a car count as an enclosed rectangle of space? Let's say someone wanted to experience even pressurized bass, but they don't have an enclosed rectangle of a room and multiple subwoofers on hand. Could they just go out to their car and easily experience even pressurized bass in there? Not even, but pressurized for sure. That's very easy to do.
You can pressurize.
You can pressurize that area very easily. But even is always the hard part, especially in that. I mean, think about the wavelengths of a bass wave.
That's just it.
You know, there's just no room for them to. They're just bouncing so many times before you get anywhere near. Which is one of the reasons
standing waves are happening at considerably higher frequencies than in even a small room. Like, think about how much smaller the interior of a car is than even a small bedroom, say. Yeah. It's much, much smaller in there. So the pressurization thing, yes. But yeah, getting that to actually be like even linear bass is a greater challenge in a car than it is in even a small room. So first of all, I mean, you're not acoustically treating inside the car in any way, shape, or form. So any correction you do would have to be 100% electronic. It can be done, but you're really brute forcing it, which is why the gigantic car bass fans have like subwoofer drivers that seem completely overkill, and in many cases there are when they're trying to hit the like 140 dB stuff that's literally damaging to your ears. But even just to get like truly linear bass inside of a car, you do need to brute force that thing, and you need more output capability than you might imagine. But aside from that, the seating position is a real challenge because you're essentially sitting in the corner of that room, as it were, right? You're sitting in the corner of the car for all intents and purposes as far as the interior space goes, which is not a great place to be sitting. So I guess you could perch yourself in the middle of the car, like sitting on the center armrest or something, or like you go to the back seat, but don't actually sit on the middle back seat. You like move yourself forward. That could help somewhat, but it's not like dead simple. It's not dead simple to hear really good bass response in your car. The pressurization, yes, but getting the linear even response, you have to brute force it with a lot of EQ.
So could AI end up making Dolby Vision unnecessary? I can already answer the question based on that, but let's just, I'll read the rest of it. So if AI could examine HDR content and adjust it in real time. SDR content to adjust it in real time to dynamically enhance brightness and contrast levels, would pre-programmed HDR metadata still be needed? Could this be a potential way for streaming services to lower their bandwidth? So the bandwidth is not from the metadata. The metadata takes, I think, very little room compared to everything else. But what's going to kill what's going to make Dolby Vision unnecessary is displays that just can get bright enough to do 10,000 nits, and then we don't need Dolby Vision to
but I mean,
change
things. We're still talking about doing the other end of tone mapping, right, which is expanding content to be have peak brightness brighter than anything the content itself called for. That doesn't need AI. That's just an algorithm.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what AI is. I know. I hate to say it, but that's we've been saying. I've been saying it for a long time, but I'll continue to say it. AI is just another word for algorithm. They have not really come up with anything that's not an algorithm. Nothing is intelligent.
It certainly is not.
It's just a very complicated algorithm.
Aren't the responses like failing the Turing test more than they did when like ChatGPT first came out? Like everyone got like all excited when it first came out because they're like, I think this thing passes the Turing test. I feel like for a while they got better and better, and I feel like lately they've just been getting worse. Like they sound more and more unhinged and not like a human. Like I don't know what the heck is going on. They seem to be getting worse.
Maybe humans are getting more unhinged. Maybe that's the problem.
There's that.
Stop testing them in America. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I mean, in terms of streaming services saving bandwidth, like the thing that's going to really help them there is just getting more efficient codecs, which again is an algorithm. It doesn't need to be AI. I mean, I'm sure they're going to say it's AI based.
Oh, they will. Yeah.
is just an algorithm that's going to get us to better streaming compression. So, but I see where he's coming from, right? Like, do we need like dedicated HDR formats with pre-written metadata? Could you just have one like low resolution, low bandwidth, low color information, not large, dynamic range? Like, could you just have one signal and then however you want to like enhance that? Could you do that with AI or just better algorithms? It's like, yeah, I think we're always going to have the scenario when you do that sometimes it messes up and you get a weird artifact that shows up. The whole idea of having pre-programmed metadata or higher resolutions or more color information or whatever is that it's just like, it's predictable. It's not going to have those weird artifacts that happen sometimes. So, and I don't think we're ever going to get away from that. I mean, obviously AI screws up and gives you different results sometimes. You can ask it the same question 10 times in a row and it's not verbatim the same answer every time. They're touting that as some kind of advantage. I don't necessarily want my computer to give me a different response every time I ask the same question. I kind of want the same response. And I want my video to be upscaled or color enhanced or dynamic range expanded like predictably and the same every time. So I'm not going to be a fan if it's actually like generative AI that does that, but I'm certain it will be applied, right? Like we're going to be sending out 240p resolution videos and saying that the AI can enhance it to 4K. Like that's going to happen, yeah. But I'd rather just have more efficient codecs.
Can you imagine? Everybody's going to look like Cthulhu in these videos when AI tries to figure out what's an arm and what's not an arm, and it keeps changing its mind. It's everybody's going to be octopus people.
Even AI, when somebody's face is literally 2 pixels in the original signal, it's going to have a challenge upscaling that. Yeah.
And Rob already alluded to this, but he asked, could AI help to restore dynamic range in music? Most modern music still seems to be dynamic range compressed so that the loudest SPL in the song is only 3 dB louder than the quietest notes. Could an AI algorithm just drop the AI part of it? Could an algorithm adjust that so we get some dynamic range back in our music? We already have.
Yeah, we already have that.
We already have these things. And we don't use them because they don't necessarily always sound that good. Some people use them, some people love them, and sometimes they work with certain songs and not others and that sort of thing. I mean, that's...
And I guess that's the question. Could AI be better at it? Right?
Not yet. I mean, in theory... In theory, it could be better at it, but as of now, it is really not very. I mean,
at some point, AI could write a better algorithm. That's or be used as part of the process of writing a better algorithm. Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so that's all the questions for this week and for this year.
We will
see you next year. Everybody have a great holiday season. Please, if you send in a question and have not heard your name mentioned.
That's right.
Then we did not get it, and just send it again.
And so we can say that definitively. We went through the whole topic list that we had, so everything that we had up to this recording session has been mentioned on this 23rd. Podcast if we received it. That's right.
Yeah, the 23rd. So we want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Dan for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 122 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for that PayPal donation, and patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 122 patrons over there.
I also thank Bill for sending me a movie code to test.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
And Saucy for offering to maybe sell me a receiver, which I may or may not take him up on.
All right, well, thank you, Saucy, for the offer.
And for notes of gratitude from Brian, Infinite Gary, Nick, Art, Jay, Karl, Brandon, Rory, and Jay again. Different Jay. Thank you for thanking us.
That's right. I'll say the names one more time. We got Brian, Gary, Nick, Art, Jay, Karl, Brandon, Rory, and a different Jay. Thank you so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something. And Merry Christmas.
And Happy New Year. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com.
Heavy knocking, heart stopping, burn up the show. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.